It all starts with his little girl hanging out on the swings, dropping a bomb on her dad about how the teacher's been grilling her regarding his absence at the parent-teacher conference. She tried to explain that he used to be this legendary god of war who got paralyzed saving the world, but nobody buys it, and now she's basically target number one for every bully on campus. Her mom isn't safe from the trash talk either, and the poor kid feels totally useless watching her mother sob her eyes out when she thinks nobody is looking. All she wants is for Lin Feng to snap out of his coma, and even though he's locked in that motionless body, he can still feel his daughter's tears and that desperate hope in her eyes. Out of nowhere, this brat shows up and starts roasting her for crying again, but then he crosses the line by claiming her mom is just using the disabled guy for some sick reason. That was the last straw for Rui, so she launches herself off the swing and goes full ballistic, charging straight at Cho X Shahu without a second thought. She screams that he better keep her parents' names out of his mouth or else, but the kid is way bigger than her and just shoves her into the dirt like a rag doll. Her head cracks against the swing set on the way down, and instead of helping, this jerk just laughs at her pain and actually spits on her. Rui is clutching the grass, shaking with pure rage while he calls her a wild animal, so she decides to prove him right and lunges forward to sink her teeth right into his hand. The bully's parents were nearby, and the moment his mom sees her precious angel under attack, she rushes over, kicks Rui, and starts screeching about how she's just a feral, uneducated brat. Back in the dirt, Rui glares daggers at the woman, realizing the apple clearly didn't fall far from the rotten tree. The woman completely ignored Rui's screams, dragging her over to Zuho like a rag doll. She shoved the girl onto the ground and started screeching, demanding she get on her knees and beg for forgiveness right now. Meanwhile, our main character was stuck in his wheelchair, feeling his internal mana boil over with rage at the sheer unfairness of it all. A mix of fury and protective dad instincts surged through him. Rue couldn't understand why on earth she had to apologize to the jerk who had just insulted her father. That was when Shao's dad decided to jump in. He yanked the poor girl's ponytail to force an apology, but Rue fought back, so the woman slapped her across the face hard. With a look of pure disgust, the bully's mom asked if she was sure she wanted to keep this up. Even facing down two adults, Rue was stubborn as a mule and refused to give an inch. Then Xiao's dad raised his hand, shouting that he was about to teach this brat a lesson she would not forget. But surprise, the protagonist caught his hand in midair. Lin gripped the guy tight, demanding to know where he got the guts to touch his daughter. That day, our hero finally got his groove back, magic and all, declaring that, from now on, anyone who touched his kid was getting their head chopped off. Xiao's dad went from feeling high and mighty to realizing his life was hanging by a thread. Lin was not about to let anyone trash his family ever again. He pinned the man to the floor while Shao and his mom stood there, totally frozen and useless. Terrified for her husband, the woman scrambled to help. She lunged at Lin, pounding on him and screaming for him to let her man go. She tried to pull the "I'm calling the cops" card, but Lin canceled that idea real quick. Asterisk, whack, asterisk. His slap hit with the force of a truck, sending her flying backward. She face-planted on the lawn, and Lin went ice cold. "You dared to touch my daughter." He was burning with rage, but he held back the final blow. "I'm sparing you today. Don't make me regret it." Even while dealing with this trash, his mind drifted back to the real fights. The war. Him standing alone against an endless tide of enemies. He had been the last warrior standing, gasping for air, his body a wreck of bruises and open wounds. Suddenly, a voice cut through the chaos, hyping him up. That man alone is worth an army of 10,000. Lin whipped around to find the source. Fresh enemies dropped in, blocking his path. "Don't get cocky, hero. You aren't walking away with an easy win." A soldier stepped up, smirking. "Okay, you're tough. I'll give you that. But the 7 sons of the Western Alliance? We are your endgame." Big talk. Lin just smiled, hefting his spear with rock-solid resolve. "I've been through 6 years of hell. You think I'm scared of you clowns?" he roared. The leader didn't wait. He charged in with lethal intent. They swarmed him, weapons glowing, desperate to land a fatal hit. But Lin moved like a ghost, weaving through the steel storm. A spear shaft slammed into his ribs, but he ate the hit like it was nothing. With a snap reflex, Lin blasted one attacker sideways with raw power. The leader tried a sneak attack from behind, weapon raised for the kill shot. But Lin was faster than lightning. Asterisk, Shing. Asterisk. The spear punched right through the enemy's chest. The guy spat crimson, staring down in total disbelief. Too weak, Lin said, voice freezing the air. An army of 10,000 couldn't make me take one step back. The last 3 charged from just 1 meter away. Lin unleashed a hurricane of slashes. Don't hate me, he snapped. Blame your own lack of skill. His spear was a blur of motion. The warriors couldn't even react before the steel found them. They realized it was over too late. There was zero defense against his crushing blows. When the dust settled, Lin was the only thing breathing on that battlefield. He thought bringing order to the nation would bring peace to his home. But the war took its pound of flesh. He was battered, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. But collapsing wasn't an option. Not while his daughter needed that bone marrow transplant. Daddy? Ray's shaky voice snapped him back to reality. She was clinging to his legs, crying out for him. Lin's heart melted instantly as he pulled her close. She stared up at him, hardly believing he was real. Lin turned on the bullies. I'll wipe the entire Shao family off the map unless you bow 100 times. Right now. They dropped to the floor instantly, heads banging against the ground, apologizing with every single breath. Ray wailed like a banshee, crying that the whole world hated her dad, but Lin promised he would never let anyone mess with their squad again. She kept sobbing, totally heartbroken that nobody believed her dad was actually a hero. He heard her but looked away, guilt-tripping himself because his powers hadn't fully recharged yet. Lin was stressing out, knowing he had to be the rock here. The kid noticed his internal struggle and asked him to put her down. He did as told, setting her down gently and telling her to chill. It was fine. He ruffled her hair and said, "Let's head home." But Ray dropped a serious truth bomb. Grandma had totally banished them so Mom could have a rendezvous with Uncle Sunday. Lin frowned. His spidey senses were tingling. Ray leaned in and whispered for him to go into shutdown mode again. He smirked at her little scheme, agreeing to the plan, and slumped back into the wheelchair to play the part. Right on cue, Ray shrieked that her dad had relapsed because the Gaskov family attacked him. Turning to the terrified couple, she yelled that they would have to answer to her uncle soon, and they were toast. She wheeled her dad toward the house while Xiaohai's parents shook, thinking a massive lawsuit was coming. Finally, the dynamic duo made it to the front entrance. A blonde woman stood in the hall, glaring at them like they were magical waste. She immediately started roasting Rui, reminding her she was banned from bringing Lin back without a permission slip. Rui hid behind the wheelchair, but chirped back bravely that she and her dad were totally wiped out. The woman didn't care, screaming at the kid to zip it and pointing at Lin, yelling that she shouldn't call that invalid her father. The girl stood her ground, insisting he was her dad forever. Suddenly, a strange guy's voice echoed out, saying it would be an honor to spend his life with Shin. Then, a tall dude strutted out of the house. Lin's expression went dark when his daughter whispered that this was the guy Mom had mentioned talking to Uncle Sun about. His wife, Shin, appeared looking gorgeous but visibly over it. She told the guy she needed to think about the proposal, but Sun agreed to give her space, acting cocky like he had already won. When he spun around, he saw a guy and a little girl chilling in the courtyard. He figured out instantly the kid was Shin's daughter. Sun walked over, pinched her cheeks, and called her a cutie. Grandma ordered Shin to walk Sun to the door, but the main character's wife shut that down. Rui's grandma sprinted after Sun to ask how the date went, leaving her daughter looking annoyed. Watching the scene unfold, Rui whispered to her dad that this dude was trying to steal Shin away. Just then, Mom walked over and tenderly held Rui's tiny hands. She thanked Rui for babysitting Dad today. The girl started crying, asking if Mom was seriously scouting for a new father. Shin promised that would literally never happen. As she wiped her daughter's tears, she noticed a mark on her face and asked if she had been fighting again. Rui lied to keep her mom from freaking out. After that, Shin took the protagonist and their daughter inside. Once Rui was tucked in, they sent her off to her room, leaving the house quiet. Shin slumped onto the edge of the bed facing Lin, looking totally lost on how to handle the mess their lives had become. Lin was internally screaming, wondering if she had any clue he was actually conscious. Then she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. She figured he was still out cold, but she just had to get this off her chest. Her words hit him like a physical blow. It took every ounce of his willpower to stay perfectly still and keep up the coma patient act. Tears started rolling down her cheeks as she ran her fingers through his hair. "Rue is safe," she choked out. "She's alive because of you, because you sacrificed everything." Then came the hard truth. She confessed that she just wanted their daughter to have a fighting chance at a happy life, even if it meant marrying Zune. She was willing to sell her soul if it meant Rue wouldn't be treated like dirt. It was a gut-wrenching choice, but admitting it to him, even if he couldn't hear, made her feel less like a liar. She stood up, whispered a heartfelt apology to his silent form, and turned to leave. Left alone in the silence, Lin's mind was racing. The amount of garbage his wife had been dealing with while he was sleeping. It was infuriating. Asterisk, bang. Asterisk. A loud noise from across the room snapped him to attention. He wasn't alone. Yang, Shin's younger sister, strolled out of the bathroom like she owned the place. "He has no idea his wifey is getting hitched, does he?" she remarked to the empty air. "Casual as you please." Lin didn't twitch, but on the inside, he was seething. She sauntered over to his wheelchair, tossing a wet towel aside. She grabbed his chin, tilting his head back. "Such a shame," she sighed. "A face this handsome just going to waste." Her phone started blasting a ringtone, breaking the mood. She hopped onto the bed, answering with a cheery, "Hey there, future brother-in-law." Her bare feet were swinging right in front of Lin's face. He tried not to dwell on the fact that she was practically naked and focused on the voice on the line. It was Sun, checking to see if his bribes had worked their magic. "Not yet," Yang replied, bored. "But don't worry, sooner or later my sister is going to belong to you." He sounded skeptical, so he played his trump card, the open wallet. That was exactly the magic word she was waiting for. "I want that designer bag and the matching heels," she demanded instantly. Sun promised her the moon and stars as long as she delivered the goods. "Consider it done," she said, heading for her sister's closet. She threw on a blouse and added, "Oh, and when you guys tie the knot, burn her wardrobe. She needs a serious upgrade." She breezed out of the room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Lin sat there in the center of the room, trying to process the absolute betrayal he just listened to. The idea that Shin felt forced into this sham marriage just to protect Rui was a bitter pill to swallow. The window was cracked open, a soft breeze fluttering the curtains. Suddenly, a shadow flickered. A girl appeared out of nowhere, kneeling right in front of his wheelchair. "Master," she said, bowing low. "Thank the gods you're finally back." Lin recognized her immediately, Shao King. "Aren't you supposed to be guarding the border?" he asked, his internal voice sharp. She didn't even look up. "My master is more important than patrol duty," she stated flatly. "Besides, after the way you crushed them last time, no one is stupid enough to cross that line." Fair point. Lin looked at his loyal subordinate. "All right then," he projected his authority. "What else have I missed?" King's expression darkened. "It's been a rough 2 years, sir. You've been surrounded by snakes, especially the ones trying to steal your wife." She confessed her hands were tied without his command. Now, she was practically begging for the green light to delete these villains from existence. Lin could barely keep a lid on his rage. He realized that while he was stuck in recovery mode, way too many vultures had started circling. But honestly, Sun was the biggest headache right now. He told Chin to dig up every single skeleton in that guy's closet. She didn't even blink, promising to get on it as soon as possible and bring back the goods. Then, silent as a shadow, the loyal sidekick slipped out the window, vanishing just as fast as she'd appeared. Left alone again, Lin didn't get much peace and quiet. The door creaked open and little Rue came zooming in like a rocket. Her face was practically glowing. She started babbling to her mom about that Sleeping Beauty fairy tale. You know, the one where the prince kisses the girl and time zap asterisk, she wakes up. With a totally innocent grin, Rue swore that if Mom just kissed Dad, he'd snap out of it too. Shin was speechless, but looking at her daughter's puppy dog eyes, she actually considered it. She crouched down, trying to break it gently, explaining that magic stories aren't exactly real life. But Rue wasn't buying it. She knew her dad was awake and just wanted her mom to figure it out. The kid kept pushing, begging for the kiss, until Shin finally sighed and agreed just to calm her down. She slowly leaned over her husband, studying his face. It had been ages since Lin had seen her this close up. She leaned in, pouring all her heartbreak into that kiss, clinging to a tiny, desperate shred of hope buried deep in her chest that he might actually wake up. Rue peeked through her fingers, waiting for her dad's eyes to pop open and for her mom to cheer, but nothing. Lin stayed frozen like a statue. Shin turned back to her daughter with a sad look, saying Dad wasn't waking up and fairy tales were fake. Rue was crushed. She couldn't understand why her dad wouldn't just get up and show Mom the truth. Shin squeezed her hand and shakily promised to find a new dad to look after them, which was basically the worst thing she could have said. Rue went from sad to furious instantly. She screamed that her mom was a liar, reminding her that she promised nobody would ever take Lin's place. Sobbing, Rue grabbed her dad's hand, shaking him and begging him to wake up. Shin had to turn away, unable to watch without breaking down herself. The little girl was sure he could hear her, pleading with him to tell Mom he was okay. Inside, Lin was using every ounce of willpower to stay still. It was tearing his heart out, and he mentally apologized to his daughter 1,000 times. He had to keep faking it. Blowing his cover now would put everyone in danger. But when she saw no reaction from him, her crying turned into full-blown wailing. She screamed that he was a liar just like her mother. Shin had to drag the kicking and screaming child out of the room, begging her to stop yelling at her father. Rue couldn't believe her dad was just going to let Mom replace him like used furniture. Hours dragged on, and the rough day finally faded into night. Darkness swallowed the house, leaving just one lonely lamp burning. Rue finally crashed, tears still stuck to her cheeks, mumbling in her sleep that everyone around her was a big fat liar. Shin sat silently next to her daughter, drowning in guilt. Suddenly, the door creaked, and Yang marched into the room. She nagged her big sister about the banquet and asked why she was still moping at home. Shin didn't react, so Yang just grabbed her wrist, insisting they had to leave right now. She added that once she married Sun, Rue could have whatever toys she wanted. Shin, just wanting her daughter to stop crying herself to sleep, reluctantly nodded. Meanwhile, back in the bedroom, Lin was still playing possum when Chin slipped back in through the open window, clutching an envelope. She called him master and reported that she had all the dirt on Sun. She handed over the intel and mentioned that Son was throwing a huge birthday bash at Hotel Joe, and Shin would be walking into the trap in about 40 minutes. Lin grabbed the envelope, thanked his ninja agent, and ripped it open carefully. As he scanned the papers, his face turned to stone. He couldn't believe how twisted the Sun family actually was. Standing up from his wheelchair, he told Chin to gear up. They were crashing this birthday party. At the hotel, the two sisters arrived on time and were greeted by staff flashing fake, expensive smiles, confirming the reservation for Sun. Of course, a private VIP room had been set aside just for them. Walking into the hall, Yang was drooling over the fancy decorations, pointing excitedly at a massive birthday arch. Shin, on the other hand, looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. A guy adjusted his glasses, smirking about how his dad rented the whole hotel. Yang rushed over to her future brother-in-law, giggling that he wasn't wrong. Footsteps echoed in the hallway as a girl walked up, carrying a box with a ring meant for the birthday girl. Yang's eyes almost popped out of her head when she saw the gold ring and the massive diamond, itching to get a closer look. Then, Sun dropped to one knee, flashed the ring, and asked Shin to marry him. The staff whispered among themselves, impressed by how much cash the family dropped on this engagement stunt. The Sun promised to take care of Shin and her family, staring at her expectantly, but the weight of the decision was crushing her. She felt like her soul was being ripped in two and stayed silent. Nearby, Lin and Chin were hidden by the piano, watching the drama unfold like hawks. Chin asked if she should take out the trash, but Lin told her to hold off. His anxiety spiked as he watched his wife. Finally, Shin pulled her hand away from Sun, stammering that it was too sudden. She confessed she was worried about who would take care of Lin. Yang gasped, hissing at her sister to just say yes. Hearing her hesitate again, Sun decided no more Mr. Nice Guy. He stood up, snapping at her for being ungrateful after everything he'd done renting the hotel, promising to fund her kid. Yang joined in, pressuring her sister to marry the rich, powerful guy, but Shin finally snapped. How dare he lecture her? She flat out rejected him. Furious at being told no, Sun reached out to grab her. Shin tried to bolt, but he threatened that if she didn't obey, her family would be wiped off the map. He whispered that she better be a good girl if she wanted her daughter safe. Then he arrogantly announced that today was going to be their wedding day. The guests started cheering like mindless drones, praising his power. The protagonist had seen enough. Lin, still watching, gave Chin a nod. She knew the drill. In the blink of an eye, the girl vanished. Just as San moved in on Shin, Chin materialized behind him, grabbing his hand and forcing him to look at her. Furious, she ordered him to stop right there. The security team rushed in to help, but Mr. Smug Smile just waved them off, ordering everyone else to clear the room. The arrogant jerk actually thought Chin stopped him out of jealousy, like she envied his fiancé or something. He smirked, stroking her cheek, and teased, "Aw, you want a hug too, sweetheart?" The guards snickered, praising Sun's undeniable charm, but Chin? Yeah, her patience just hit 0. Asterisk whack. Asterisk. She slapped him so hard his glasses shattered. He stood there frozen, clutching his face in total disbelief before the rage finally kicked in. "End her!" he screamed at his security. The goons lunged, shouting about how she had no idea who she was messing with. But their confidence evaporated the second Chin raised her hand and with barely a flick, sent the first attacker flying across the room. She didn't even break a sweat, dropping 3 more guys, leaving them in a heap. The last guard just stared at his unconscious buddies, his brain completely short-circuiting. Sun lost it, roaring, "I am the heir! This is my time's family's turf!" Chin gave him a look of pure ice. Rich kids really need to learn some manners. A woman nearby whispered, watching the scene, "Who times is times that girl." Chin turned and coolly wished the woman a happy birthday, leaving her stunned. Suddenly, a beautiful piano melody swept through the hotel lobby. "Hey, look at the stage!" someone shouted. The sisters turned, jaws dropping as they saw a drop-dead gorgeous guy killing it on the piano. Yang was practically drooling, screaming about how hot he was. But Chin froze. She recognized that face immediately. That was her husband. She told herself, that's definitely him. The woman next to her looked confused, having no clue why Chin was calling this stranger her master. Sun was furious seeing some random guy in what he thought was Times hotel. He started screaming for the manager. The staff rushed over and the manager snapped his fingers for security. A massive squad showed up and Sun smirked, thinking Chin was finally about to get what she deserved. He pointed a shaking finger at her, barking orders, but instead of obeying, the guards turned on Times him asterisk. To his shock, they grabbed him and started hauling him out. "I'm Sun, get off me," he shrieked. The manager just gave him a chilly smile. "Oh, we know exactly who you are." Mr. Lin rented the entire hotel. Sun tried to keep up the tough guy act, but reality hit him hard, and panic set in. The manager apologized profusely to Chin, then had his staff toss Sun and his goons out onto the street, ignoring their pathetic protests. The manager grabbed his radio and made it official. The entire Sun family is now blacklisted from this property. Meanwhile, all tension shifted to the man at the piano. Chin couldn't take her eyes off him, her mind a storm of emotions. Could that really be her husband? Yang, totally captivated by this rich, handsome stranger, begged Chin to introduce them. But Chin played dumb, muttering, "I don't know him." The rest of the crowd just swayed, enchanted by the unique melody Lin was playing. Asterisk, boom, asterisk. Loud explosions outside grabbed everyone's attention. "Look up!" someone shouted. The night sky lit up with massive fireworks, and right in the center of the fiery display was a message congratulating the birthday girl. Chin stood there, stunned by the romance of it all. Hearing people whisper Lin's name with such admiration stirred something deep inside her. She couldn't wait anymore. She had a sudden, desperate need to confirm if that piano player was actually her husband. She spun around and bolted toward the stage, but her little sister grabbed her arm, trying to hold her back. Chin yanked her arm free, convinced Lin was waiting for her. But when she got there, empty. The piano sat in silence. Her heart dropped. Where did he go? Her sister walked up behind her, shrugging. Lin already went home. Chin nodded, realizing she needed to get back too. In reality, Lin had slipped out early and was already back in his room before his wife even arrived. Back in the shadows, he ordered his assistant to gather every scrap of dirt on the Yan family immediately. She bowed, apologizing for speaking out of turn, but insisted, "Master, no one needs to know you've awakened. I can handle this myself." He smirked, worried about the fallout if people find out I'm awake. Standing by the window, Chin avoided answering directly. Suddenly, he saw Chin pulling into the driveway. His assistant bowed one last time and vanished into the night. Lin quickly changed back into his shabby clothes, determined to keep his recovery a secret a little longer. He hated lying to his wife, but he had no choice. When Chin walked in, she ignored her mother's prying questions. Her mom sneered, "Nothing's changed in there. The cripple is exactly where you left him." Yang interrupted, excitedly telling their mom that Chin had been the star of the night. She even showed a video of the mysterious host, bragging, "This billionaire named Lin did all this just for our Chin." Her mother scoffed. Well, now that she's found a richer man, she doesn't need to marry Sunday Chin, just tuned her out and pushed open the bedroom door. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered his name, hoping. Just hoping. But her heart shattered when she saw him sitting motionless in his wheelchair. She could have sworn it was him at the hotel, but seeing him like this, her hope instantly turned to dust. Weeping, she remembered 5 years ago. Her family tried to force her to marry that slimeball son, so she was relieved when her grandfather set her up with the protagonist instead. They got married, and soon little Ray was born, a ray of light in her harsh world. But then, Ray got sick and needed a bone marrow transplant. Lin had saved their daughter, destroying his own health in the process. Tears streamed down Chin's face as the memory hit her. Her daughter was alive, but her husband was broken. She was on her knees, tears streaming down her face, begging him to snap out of it. She couldn't keep living in this nightmare. Lin watched his wife, and his heart felt like it was being put through a shredder. Asterisk. Just hang on. Asterisk, he promised silently. Asterisk. The wait is almost over. Asterisk. Meanwhile, Yang watched the pathetic scene with a sneer. Seriously, what did her sister see in this deadbeat who couldn't even feed himself? Then, she remembered the payoff she was promised by that rich guy, Lin. Putting on a fake, bubbly smile, she skipped into the room. She tried to hype Shin up, suggesting they hit the club to blow off some steam. Shin tried to shut it down, mumbling about needing sleep and having to drive Ray to school in the morning. Maybe another time? But Yang wasn't taking no for an answer. "Oh, come on! You're totally stressed out. We need..." Earlier that day, that creep son had called Yang, demanding she hold up her end of their shady bargain. She hesitated at first, but then he dangled the bait. He promised he could get her hitched to the mysterious billionaire, Mr. Lin. Hook, line, and sinker. She agreed to drag her sister to the bar that very... Turning on the charm, she hugged Shin and squealed about being the best sister ever, all while mentally checking off the steps of her betrayal. Exhausted and worn down, Shin finally caved and went to fix her makeup, completely oblivious to the trap. As she walked away, Yang shot the protagonist a look that was pure venom. She leaned in close to Lin, whispering, "Enjoy it while it lasts. After tonight, she's finally divorcing you." Then she spun around and flounced out. The second the door clicked shut, the helpless act vanished. A shadow flickered at the bedroom window. It was his subordinate, China. "Boss," China reported, "I've dug up the dirt on the Yang family." That was his wife's relatives. China broke it down. The family business was tanking, hard. The only way out? They promised to hand Shin over to that rich kid if he bailed them out of debt. Lin's expression went ice cold. That rich kid is playing a dangerous game. Let's see if he's faster than my blade. He watched his wife's car pull out of the driveway. Track them. Don't let her out of your sight. Over at the Love Bar, Sun was already seated, looking like the cat that got the cream. Even the bartenders noticed he was in a weirdly good mood. They topped off his drink. "You hit the jackpot or something, buddy?" The guy laughed like a maniac. "Better. I've got great news coming my way." Everyone around him cheered, having no clue what a scumbag he was. Just then, the sisters walked in. China radioed in. Every guy in the place turned to look at the girls. They were stunners. Sun spotted them, his grin widening into something predatory, and strutted over. Shin froze. You didn't say times would be here. She demanded an explanation, ready to bolt. Her little sister went into damage control mode immediately. It clicked instantly. Shin realized her sister had set her up. This was an ambush. Sun played the humble card. He bowed dramatically to the girl. Look, I was an idiot before. I acted rashly. I just want to apologize and clear the air. Please. The protagonist's wife hesitated. She knew her family was desperate for Sun's money. She couldn't just nuke this bridge, no matter how much she hated the guy. Sun swore up and down it wouldn't happen again, but inside, his monologue was pure filth. He was just counting the seconds until he could drag her to bed. He headed to the bar to grab drinks. While pouring the wine, he waited for Shin to look away, then slipped a little dissolving pill into her glass. He returned, offering the glass like a peace offering. Shin shook her head. No thanks, I'm driving. But Yang jumped in, playing the guilt card. Oh, come on, sis. Just a sip. Show him you forgive him. She practically shoved the glass at her. Nothing's gonna happen. Reluctantly, Shin took the glass. She downed it in one go just to get it over with. Yang smirked. See? Now Sun knows you're cool. Sun was practically vibrating with excitement, already fantasizing about his victory. A few minutes later, the room started spinning. Shin felt nauseous and tried to tell her sister they needed to leave, but the arrogant jerk shoved his way into her personal space. Before she could protest, he scooped her up into his arms. Shin tried to push him away, but her limbs felt like jelly. The bar was packed, but everyone just smiled like idiots, thinking it was romantic. Even her sister watched the whole thing happen and didn't lift a finger to help. Suddenly, China's voice crackled over the comms. Boss, they've taken her. Lin didn't hesitate. Find the location, now. Milky Way Hotel, Grand Suite. The protagonist was furious. Secure the perimeter, he ordered China, but leave the main trash for me to take out. Sun dragged the girl into a hotel just down the street. Shin was slurring her words, confused. What's happening? She was trying to piece together where they were, panic starting to set in as the fog in her brain thickened. I want to go home, she mumbled. Sun just laughed, whispering toxic garbage in her ear. You're drunk, babe. We both know why we're here. He grabbed her chin roughly. You're staying with me tonight. She wasn't going down without a fight. She summoned every ounce of strength she had and shoved him backward. A twisted, crazy smile spread across Sun's face. Oh, I like a fighter. He started spewing the most disgusting, perverted things imaginable. He clamped his hand around her wrist. There's no escape, sweetheart. This whole place is on my payroll. Shin felt a wave of disgust and tried to claw at him. She knew if she didn't fight now, it was over. In a moment of desperation, she lunged and bit his ear hard. He shrieked in pain and yanked her hair to pull her off. You little witch, he screamed. You're gonna regret that. He started choking her, yelling that this was her fault for rejecting his marriage proposal. Shin's vision was fading. The only person she could think of was her husband. Suddenly, the hotel room door exploded inward. The protagonist stood there. Sun didn't recognize him at first. Get out! Wrong room, moron! But the hero's aura was terrifying, pure death. Touch her again, Lin growled, and I'll send your entire bloodline to the graveyard. The girl blinked, trying to focus. She couldn't believe it. Her husband was actually here. Before Sun could react, Lin's fist connected with his face, sending him crashing to the floor. Sun scrambled back, staring at the unexpected guest. He couldn't compute how a guy in a wheelchair had just moved that fast, but as he sat on the floor, he realized he was outmatched. Now, sporting a fresh black eye to match the bruise on his cheek, Sun was trembling. He was convinced this was some sort of set-up conspiracy against him. That ridiculous assumption really ticked him off. Suddenly, Sun scrambled to his feet, legs wobbling like jelly, claiming his rescue squad was on the way. Somehow, the guy still felt high and mighty, running his mouth about how a cripple like Lin was beneath him. He threatened to go after Lin's wife and kid if Lin touched him. That was the last straw. Lin snapped, asking what kind of garbage he was spewing. Lin figured a warning was enough for now. But Sun whipped out his phone, swearing Lin would soon find out who the real loser was. Lin caught his hand in midair, instantly. Then he asked, icy cold, if that was the filthy hand he used to touch Chin. Lin started twisting. The guy screamed in agony, sputtering that his family wouldn't let Lin get away with this. Lin answered with a solid punch. The guy dropped to his knees. Lin made it clear he didn't give a damn about his rich family. He stepped back, promising zero mercy next time. Just then, Chin's eyelids got heavy. She was fighting to stay awake. Her husband moved in close, taking off his jacket to wrap her up safe. Lin swore everything was fine now that he was there. But she wasn't buying it completely. She panicked, reminding him he'd go to jail if he killed the guy. Hearing her fear gave Sun a confidence boost, and he started mocking Lin again. Big mistake. Lin leaned in, whispering that Sun didn't even count as a human being in his eyes. He shoved him into the dirt. Sun started begging for his life, but Lin just said he wasn't going to end him. Not yet. Because he was still useful. Lin lifted his boot off the guy. Sun was shaking like a leaf, terrified, asking what Lin wanted. The hero stared down the scumbag who dragged his wife to a hotel room. It was time to teach Sun a lesson he would never forget. The guy tried to talk his way out of it, but Lin's foot crushed his most sensitive spot. The scream was ear-splitting. Justice served. Leaving Sun writhing on the floor, Lin scooped his wife up into his arms. She finally started coming to. She looked up at Lin, relief washing over her. He had actually saved her. Chin was terrified she was hallucinating, but he promised this was real life. He apologized for cutting it close, then planted a kiss on her lips. He told her he was taking her home for a checkup. Chin beamed. 2 years ago, the world forgot about the crippled Lin, but now he was back, fully healed and dismantling Son's family piece by piece. Later, Lin crept into the bedroom. His daughter was still fast asleep. He leaned on the mattress and the little girl felt his presence. Her eyes fluttered open. Seeing her dad, Rue burst into tears and hugged him tight. She admitted she was scared he was gone forever. She asked about his health, but he smoothed it over, saying he was just tired and it was bedtime. Mommy would be back soon. He tried to slip away to his room, but the kid grabbed his hand. Rue looked anxious, tormented by the idea that he might sneak out during the night. He'd lied before, after all. So he let her in on a secret. Plans had changed, but she had to promise not to tell a soul that he was up and walking. Rue crossed her heart. She wouldn't even tell Mom. They pinky swore on it. Meanwhile, at the hospital, a doctor was grimly reviewing some test results. She walked into Sun's room with bad news. Surgery was the only way out, but the survival odds were garbage. The young heir thought he was a goner. Then the doctor dropped the bomb. Amputation was his only real option. The news made him scream down the entire hospital wing, vowing to make Lin pay. Miles away, Chin was sleeping peacefully in her room. Her daughter was waiting patiently by her side. Chin blinked open her eyes, realizing she was safe in her own bed. Hearing Rue's voice made her head spin. The little girl giggled, calling her mom a total sleepyhead. Memories of last night flooded back. She frantically looked for her husband, and there he was, sitting in his wheelchair like always. She started sobbing, convinced the rescue was a dream and someone else had been there. Rue cupped her mom's face, whispering not to cry. Dad would definitely protect them. Suddenly, Chin's mother stormed in, demanding to know who gave her daughter that pill. Chin hugged her daughter tight, explaining that creep Sun had spiked her wine, but someone managed to save her. The older woman spun around, ready to throw hands with whoever touched her daughter's honor. But she froze. Wait, are you seriously accusing Sun? Lin's wife was 100% sure. She stood her ground, but her sister cut in, claiming it had to be a huge misunderstanding. Why would he do that? The sister argued. He's about to marry into the family anyway. The sister was just covering her own tracks since she was the one who dragged Chin to that bar. The mother sighed, deciding Chin must be mistaken. Rui lost it. She screamed at her grandma that her mommy never lies. The old hag raised a fist, warning the kid to shut up when adults are talking. Lin was seething, but he couldn't blow his cover yet. Suddenly, the mother's phone rang, and a wave of dread hit her. It was Sun calling. Panic set in. She answered, only to hear Sun threaten to wipe out the entire Jan family if Chin didn't meet him at his house. Click. The call ended. Chin's mother immediately started begging her daughter to just apologize and save the family. Chin was disgusted by her family's cowardice, but she had no choice. Rui was fuming that her mom had to say sorry to the bad guy. It was totally unfair. Later, when Lin and Rui were alone, the little girl looked up. "Daddy, please tell Mommy it's going to be okay." So, our hero asks his little girl for a lift to the park. He's got to go beat down some thugs. Can't have Grandma yelling at Mom again, right? That was the mission. Rue was totally pumped about it, but her dad had to remind her, zip it. This is top secret, classified stuff. Meanwhile, Shin's dad is staring at his battered son like he's a broken vase. His wife? A mess of tears, wailing about who would dare hurt her precious baby boy. The old man snapped. Save the waterworks. This only happened because you coddled him way too much. He called Shin worthless trash, dragging the family name through the mud over some girl. Shin tried to plead his case, swearing he got ambushed. Dad wasn't buying it, he just saw incompetence. The mom, though? She was convinced the Jin family orchestrated a hit on her angel. Pacing by the window, the father dismissed it. Please. The Jins are ants compared to us. They wouldn't dare try something this dangerous. Still, he figured they might have hired some muscle. He decided to grill Shin for the gritty details. Shin kept swearing it was that crippled husband who wrecked him. His dad scoffed, promising to tear the guy limb from limb if he ever found him. Family meeting adjourned. The hero suddenly appeared in their home, radiating an aura so heavy it felt like gravity just doubled. He looked around, unimpressed. You guys must be in deep trouble to need this many watchdogs outside. The wife scrambled behind her husband. Just as the dad demanded a name, Shin shot up in bed, screeching, "That's him! That's the guy!" The father narrowed his eyes. "Breaking into my house? You've got a death wish, kid." Lin scanned the room with pure disgust. These people weren't even worth his wife's time. The dad waved a hand, ordering his goons to seize the intruder. Lin just smirked. Your guards are currently taking a permanent nap, but hey, feel free to call for backup if you want. Furious, the older man growled that Lin wouldn't leave alive. I'll give you one last chance to beg for mercy. Lin sighed, annoyed by the weak threats. Are you really confident enough to back that up? In a blink, he vanished and reappeared right behind the guy. One casual smack to the face, and the family patriarch hit the floor. See? I do what I want, he stated flatly. The mother watched, paralyzed with the same fear gripping her husband. She opened her mouth to scream, but clamped her hands over it the second Lin's gaze shifted her way. Struggling to stand, the father spat blood. I don't care who your boss is. I'll wipe you all out. Lin was suddenly nose to nose with him. Garbage, just like your son. Shin watched from the bed, trembling. This guy wasn't human. A dark, demonic energy flooded the room, freezing them in place. Lin hoisted the old man up by his throat, ignoring the gurgled pleas for mercy. The mother threw herself at Lin's feet, hysterical. I'll pay you. Anything you want. Realizing his inheritance was being choked out, Shin started begging too. Let him go. I won't touch her again. Lin scoffed. Now you want peace? Pathetic. He tossed the man aside like a rag doll. The father gasped for air on the carpet while his wife fluttered around him. Lin looked down coldly. You have one day. Go apologize to the Jin family. Sincerely. Or I wipe your entire bloodline off the map. And if you breathe a word about seeing me, you disappear then, too. The threat hung heavy in the air. The office door clicked shut, leaving the terrified family alone in the silence. Humiliation quickly turned back to rage for the patriarch. He wasn't letting this slide. He needed mercenaries to slaughter the Yan family immediately. He stumbled up, grabbing his phone to make the calls while his wife nervously checked the hallway. But before he could bark orders, the voice on the other end delivered a nightmare. Investors pulled out. Banks froze the accounts. The phone slipped from his hand. His multi-million-dollar empire had collapsed in seconds. Shin, wrapped in his blanket, whimpered, "What do we do?" But his father was catatonic, terrified of who Lin actually was. Shin couldn't process it. But the Jin family needs our money. The father ripped the blanket off him. "My company is my life. You are going to crawl over there and apologize right now." Shin stared, stunned that his own father was feeding him to the wolves. The man shook his son violently. "If that girl doesn't forgive you, I will end you myself." Meanwhile, at the Jin house, the mother was panicking. She told her daughter to just accept whatever the Sun family wanted, or they'd be destitute. The daughter didn't have the energy to fight back, so she just nodded along. Her mom told her to smile and look nice as they opened the door. But instead of a threat, they found the rich brat kneeling on the porch. Her mother tried to pull him up, apologizing for her daughter, but Shin slapped her hand away. "No, it's all my fault. Please, I'm begging you." The young woman narrowed her eyes, convinced this was some kind of twisted trap. He grabbed the hem of her dress, sobbing promises to leave her alone. Disgusted, she stepped back. "Fine. I forgive you. Just get away from me." The kid wept tears of joy, swearing she'd never see him again. She stood there, completely baffled by his sudden breakdown. On top of the verbal apology, the kid handed over a check for $1 million as compensation for emotional damages. No hesitation here, he snatched that check up instantly. Shin made it clear she never wanted to see his face again, and Sun didn't need telling twice, he bolted. Shin tried to grill her daughter about who exactly had helped them stand up to a heavyweight family like Sun's, but the little girl just played dumb. She figured it had to be that mystery savior from yesterday. Clearly, the guy had connections. Meanwhile, Sun fled the scene, praying this whole mess was finally over and he could salvage what was left of his reputation. But his luck ran out fast. He walked right into Lin and his daughter. The protagonist shot him a glare that could kill. The kid stammered that Shin had accepted the apology and asked if there were any other orders. Lin's response was ice cold. "Pray we never cross paths again." He was about to scramble away when Lin's voice froze him in place. Just a friendly reminder, if he breathed a word about Lin's identity to anyone, his entire family would be wiped off the map. Terrified, Sun dropped to his knees, screaming promises that he'd take Lin's secret to the grave. Back at the house, Shin's mother was still harping on the same old tune. Divorce, that loser. There were plenty of decent men out there, so why was she clinging to such a useless husband? She tried to guilt-trip her daughter, playing the emotional card hard. Just then, Ray returned home with her dad and walked right into the drama. Shin blinked in surprise seeing her daughter with Lin. Ray chirped up, explaining she'd just taken Daddy out for some fresh air and sunshine. Shin immediately scooped her daughter up in a hug, praising her for being such a smart cookie. The grandmother, however, wasn't feeling the vibe and let out a loud, disdainful scoff. The little girl leaned in and whispered to her mom that Daddy had taken care of the bad guys, but shh, that was their little secret. Shin looked at her daughter, stunned for a second, before bursting into laughter and promising to take her to school herself. Later, as Ray got ready for class, she peeked in on her dad one last time to make sure he was okay. Lin watched his family, a rare warmth filling his chest. Even in his current state, just being part of their lives was enough. The moment the girls left, King stepped in. The protagonist wasted no time, ordering his subordinate to get him out of the house. He wanted to watch his daughter head off to school. Cut to the school run. Ray looked up at her mom and said she really wanted Daddy to be the one picking her up later. Shin promised her a treat if she behaved. But the moment was ruined. When they reached the gate, the Shao family was there, blocking the path with their noses stuck high in the air. Shin held her daughter tight, bracing herself for trouble. She demanded to know what they were doing there. The man pointed to a bruise on his forehead, blaming Lin for the injury. He swore they wouldn't get off lightly this time. His wife chimed in, demanding $200,000 for emotional distress. She grabbed her son, Shao, whining that the poor kid hadn't eaten in 2 days because he was so traumatized. The father stood his ground, clearly looking for a fight. Shin fired back that was impossible. Lin was in a wheelchair, for crying out loud. The man stepped closer, screaming that he didn't care if she believed him or not. He was going to destroy her cripple of a husband. Ray stepped up, shouting that if he didn't back off, she'd call her dad right now. That's when the man felt that same terrifying aura from Lin. Deciding he didn't fancy another beating, he grabbed his family and scrambled away. His wife was baffled why run when he'd promised to handle the disabled guy. But the family head had a bad feeling, while the hidden protagonist told himself there'd be plenty of time to deal with them later. Shin knelt down to her daughter, explaining gently that she had to head off now. Suddenly, Director Yang appeared at the school gate, insisting he needed a word with Shin. Confused, she followed him as he suggested they take this conversation to his office. She assumed it was about her daughter's grades or something. They stepped into the office. The director dropped the bomb. Ray's academic contract was ending this year, and they needed to discuss renewal. Shin was baffled the agreement was for 2 years, and it had only been 6 months. He hemmed and hawed about limited seating and booking issues, but Shin cut him off, reminding him she'd already paid $50,000 when they signed the deal. The man leaned back in his chair, smirking as he explained that the $50,000 was merely an admission down payment. Shin was fuming that money was supposed to cover the full first year. The director just chuckled, clearly pleased she'd walked right into his trap. Then came the shakedown. He offered to secure a spot for her. Option 1, cough up $1 million, plus his personal commission, of course. He knew damn well she didn't have that kind of cash. Shin, gritting her teeth, asked for option 2. He propped his feet up on the desk, looking her up and down. He mentioned hearing about her husband's limitations and insinuated he didn't need to spell out the details of the second method. Furious, Shin slammed her hands on the desk, calling him a disgusting pig. Yang adjusted his glasses, cool as a cucumber, and stated that Ray wouldn't be attending prep school on her terms. Shin refused to play his game. She decided right then to pull her daughter out. That wiped the smile off his face. He sneered that no prep school in this entire city would touch her daughter without his say-so. He shouted that she'd be back tomorrow, begging on her knees. Shin stormed out. She had paid a fortune for this good environment, and this was what she got? Outside, something caught King's attention. He spun Lin's wheelchair toward the exit just in time to see Shin running out, tears streaming down her face. Lin realized instantly that things had gone south in that office. He decided to go pay the director a little visit himself. Meanwhile, inside, Shouhao's father barged in on the director. Yang stiffened, plastering a fake smile on his face to welcome the VIP. The truth was, Yang was terrified of offending the Chu family. They were the deepest pockets in town. The father didn't beat around the bush. He wanted that girl expelled. The director quickly connected the dots they were talking about Ray. Yang assured them she'd be gone by the end of the semester, but that wasn't good enough. Chu slammed his hand down, offering a cool $1 million if the brat was kicked out effective immediately. The director swore he would handle the mess as soon as possible, practically salivating over the easy fortune coming his way. Bam! The boardroom door slammed open, making everyone jump. All eyes snapped to Lin. The director, having zero clue who he was dealing with, puffed out his chest to show who was boss. But the arrogant couple in the corner turned pale. Just seeing Lin standing there made them shiver because they knew exactly what kind of monster he was. Yang was too dense to read the room, though, demanding to know why this intruder was here. Asterisk, whack. Asterisk. A brutal slap shut him up, and his wife started mentally packing her bags for the director was sweating bullets, but still tried to kick Lin out. Bad move. He froze in sheer terror when Lin calmly promised to carve out his tongue if he squeaked one more word. Lin turned his cold gaze back to the bully. Why so quiet now? You had plenty of insults a second ago. Our hero pinned the guy's hands to the floor, voice dropping to a growl. Touch my wife again, and you can say goodbye to these hands permanently. Lin shot a meaningful glare at the woman, and she got the message loud and clear. She dropped to her knees instantly, blubbering apologies and admitting they screwed up big time. Lin gave them a simple choice. Leave town by sundown, or else. The director watched. Mind-boggled, why did this random guy have so much juice? The family scrambled out like rats. Lin casually flopped onto the sofa. Now, he told the director, I'm giving you one chance to explain why you're targeting my daughter. That's when the director's brain finally started working. Asterisk, oh no, this guy is Rui's dad. Asterisk. Instead of apologizing, the idiot doubled down on his death wish. He actually tried to blackmail Lin. You want your kid in this school? Then your wife warms my bed. Lin's blood boiled. He didn't waste breath on words. He launched a kick that shattered the guy's glasses and probably his face. The director hit the floor, clutching his swelling cheek. He lay there, shaking, unable to process the absolute beatdown he just took. He whipped out his phone, screaming, "You're dead meat! I'm making you pay!" But before he could dial, someone else barged into the office. The director scrambled over, thinking backup had arrived. But the big boss wasn't there to save him. He looked ready to murder someone. The school owner had heard it all. "Abusing your power for personal gain, harassing parents," he spat. "I know exactly what you said to his wife." The director gaped. "Fired? Just like that?" The boss wasn't taking the fall for this moron. "You're done," he barked. "Get out of my city." The ex-director slumped, totally defeated. He couldn't wrap his head around it. How did a useless vegetable just destroy his entire life? The boss shoved him toward Lin. "Apologize to the master right now, or I'll make sure your ending is a lot worse than just getting fired." The boss bowed to Lin, sweating profusely, promising to fix everything. Lin just shrugged. He didn't need handouts. Sensing the mood, the boss realized he couldn't protect the ex-director at all. That's when the disgraced director started groveling for real, desperate for mercy. Lin leaned in close, voice icy. "You thought money and power let you play God? Well, now you have neither. No home, no cash, have fun begging on the streets." Fitting punishment, the boss agreed quickly. He turned to Lin, desperate to please. "I'll personally ensure your daughter gets the VIP treatment here." The owner breathed a sigh of relief. The mayor's warning call had saved his skin. Lin stood up. "One condition. Nobody knows I was here. Keep your mouth shut about my appearance." They swore secrecy, but the damage was done. It was clear someone else already knew the sleeping dragon had woken up. Meanwhile, Shin trudged through the park, feeling like the world was crushing her. Suddenly, her younger sister popped up. "Hey, heading to the office?" Shin sighed and spilled the beans about the $1 million school fee she needed to scrape together. "See, this is because you have no status," the sister sneered, bringing up the rich creep Zune again. That was the last straw. Shin snapped, "I'm done with you. Consider us strangers from today on." The sister rolled her eyes. "Mom told me about your pathetic situation. Just ask your mystery boyfriend for help." Shin shot back. "Stop talking nonsense." The sister thought Shin was a total idiot. Why stick with a paralyzed loser when she could land a powerful sugar daddy? After the spat, the sister ditched Shin to handle her own mess. She headed straight to a nearby cafe to meet Sunday. She noticed he looked off and asked if he was sick. Sun glared at her, furious. She blinked, confused. Why was he looking at her like he wanted to kill her? "Just reminding you," she chirped, "you need to step up if you want my sister." Sun gave a twisted smile. "You're really pushing your luck, aren't you?" "That cripple is your only competition," she said. "You're clearly the better choice." Sun thanked her, but his eyes were dark and terrifying. Figuring he wasn't interested anymore, she shrugged. "Whatever. Since you gave up, I'm out of here." As soon as she left, Sun dialed his crew. "I've got a target for you." Walking away, the sister mused about how easily the rich air seemed to fold. She pouted, realizing she wasn't getting that designer bag she was promised. 2 thugs started tailing her. She was too self-absorbed to notice. The guys smirked, mentally thanking Sun for the gift. "We're gonna have some fun with this one." They cut her off, blocking the path with nasty grins. "Hey, beautiful. All alone out here?" Panic set in. She backed away, trembling. The guys looked her up and down like a piece of meat. "We're here to collect," one laughed. From the shadows, an aide asked Lin, "Should we step in?" Lin watched coldly. "Not yet. Let her learn a lesson first." He knew she was a greedy traitor, but she was still his wife's blood. He'd wait to see if she actually learned anything before saving her. They dragged her into an alley. "I'll pay you," she screamed. "Anything." The thugs just laughed. "Sun already paid us, sweetheart, and the payment is times you asterisk." Her blood ran cold. Asterisk, Sun, asterisk. She couldn't understand. She tried to help him, and this is how he pays her back? She screamed her head off trying to get away, but the panic just seemed to entertain the creeps even more. Her outfit was shredded, giving the guys a free show they definitely didn't deserve. Yang was sobbing and begging for a savior. Right on cue, Ching went full ninja mode, taking out the white-haired punk with a single strike before dropping his buddy like a sack of potatoes. Yang sat on the pavement, trying to cover up. Jin glanced at the girl he just rescued and told her to save her breath, he didn't want to thank you. He warned Jay to stop messing around with his big sister's business, or he wouldn't bother playing hero next time. After dropping that truth bomb, he walked out of the alley, leaving Jay standing there alone. The girl was still a mess of tears, wondering why that woman had addressed her as mistress and, more importantly, who the heck the master behind it all was. Jay wrapped up and felt a wave of guilt for pushing his sister to stick with Zun. Meanwhile, Ching was backshadowing the main character like a loyal bodyguard. They hoped the girl had learned her lesson. Chin agreed. Then he mentioned the upcoming Benhai Bash was just around the corner, though Lin swore he wasn't going. Suddenly, a guard rushed up to Sun with bad news. 2 of their guys had been taken out of the equation. Lin was shocked that his henchman had botched such a simple job, but he wasn't the type to quit over one failure. He swore this was just the opening act of Yang's misery. He cooked up a nasty scheme to handle Yang and dialed up his buddy Lu. The clock was ticking, and the big Benhai celebration was getting closer. Right then, Sun showed up at Chin's place again, swearing up and down that he was only there to help. Chin's mom was completely oblivious to the vibes and ate up every word he said. Sun casually asked if the girls knew about the massive party happening in 2 weeks. The mom practically lit up. That gala was the social event of the season, and she was clearly hoping he'd be their ticket in. Sun played it cool, saying his family wasn't on the guest list, so he couldn't take them personally, but promised to hook them up with a friend who could. Lin's wife was done with this conversation, standing up to leave, but Lin grabbed his daughter, insisting she couldn't walk away from a golden opportunity like this. While the mom tried to guilt-trip her daughter into staying, the guy figured if she agreed, he'd get to crash the party too, as her +1. Out of nowhere, Rue and his dad walked in. Sun started sweating bullets. He didn't expect that demon to return so soon. Sun quickly bowed to the girls, pressuring them to make up their minds as soon as possible, before bolting. Lee thought Yang should just say yes. Jay, however, wasn't about to trust Sun, especially after the recent drama. She went downstairs to update her mom, but Lee was furious, absolutely convinced the young master was a saint who would never pull a stunt like that. Jay didn't push it, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the bad guys were going to strike again. Suddenly, Jig Shin mentioned that Grandpa called yesterday and summoned her to the main mansion. Lean wasn't thrilled about it and couldn't figure out why the old man wanted her daughter. Sun admitted he didn't have the deeds but felt they needed to hurry over there. The Yang family's main estate was a monster compared to their little country home. Grandpa sat at the head of the table, grumpy that the family hadn't snagged an invite to the gala. He noted that even though business was booming, the elites still treated them like invisible nobodies. The blonde guy shot a look at Sun, hinting that there was a way to get noticed if they played their cards right. The girl was stunned to realize the entire clan was looking at her to fix their social status. Grandpa hadn't cared about Sun for years, but he made sure to remind her that he'd always sign the checks when it mattered. The old man clasped his hands and dropped the bomb. He needed a huge favor from her. She thought he had to be joking. She honestly had no clue what she could possibly offer. The blonde guy sneered, asking if she was too good to help the family. Her cousin chimed in, accusing her of playing dumb. Sun figured he couldn't fix a mess the family head couldn't handle. Finally, the old man spelled it out. A VIP had the hots for her, and he was their golden ticket to the party. Sun felt sick to her stomach, arguing that nobody would be interested in her since she was already a mom. The cousin gave a nasty smirk, telling her she should be grateful for the attention. The uncle decided to pile on, too. The protagonist's wife shot up from her chair, declaring she was a married woman, not a party favor. The uncle fired back that being a toy was better than nursing a vegetable. Shin tried to defend her husband's honor. Grandpa slammed the table, promising that if she did this one thing, the family would owe her big time. But she wasn't having it. She flat out refused to sell her dignity or let anyone use her body as a bargaining chip. Shin said she'd stay loyal to her husband, and if they wanted to go through with this scheme, they could do it without her. She couldn't believe they'd even ask. The old man wasn't taking no for an answer. That's when the cousin started guilt-tripping her about the fallout if she walked away. The wife stood her ground, insisting her body was hers alone to control. Then the cousin switched tactics, threatening that her husband might have a little accident. It was obvious the girl was just jealous of Shin's looks, constantly wondering what everyone saw in her. She shoved Shin onto the table and then knocked her to the floor. The cousin screamed that this was her last chance to make the right choice, adding that her family's survival depended on it. It tore her apart, but the protagonist's wife finally agreed to surrender. Her principles to keep her husband and daughter safe. Grandpa waved a dismissive hand, promising protection if she secured that invite, and she stormed out of the Jin mansion, completely crushed. A while later, Shin made it back home and dragged her husband straight to the park. Sitting on the swing set, she decided to spill everything Grandpa had demanded. Shin told Lin that some big shot was obsessed with her, and she had to entertain him if she didn't want to bring a world of pain down on him and their daughter. The poor girl panicked, blurring out that she had to score a ticket or her entire family was toast. She clung to her husband, sobbing that she didn't want to betray him, but she wasn't strong enough to lose them. Then she apologized to Lin, claiming this twisted path was the only way to keep everyone safe. The protagonist was absolutely livid at how they treated his wife, and his hands suddenly flared with mystic blue fire. He quickly cast a sleep spell on her and tucked her gently into the chair. He swore a dark oath right then and there to hunt down every single person who dared to bully his wife. Dropping the disguise, Lin stood tall and decided he was done hiding. He woke his subordinate Ching and barked orders to announce his arrival at the upcoming Benhai Bash. Back at the house, Shin's mom was totally thrown off to see Dad home so early. Just then, the cousin dragged in this guy named Lu Shao. The creep sat right next to Shin and started playing with her hair while she sat there, totally confused by what was happening. Grandpa didn't waste a second, demanding they get Shin in there immediately because a VIP like Mr. Lu couldn't be kept waiting. She tried to explain that the daughter was dropping Ray off at school. Then she asked why they were all there. The cousin smirked, saying Lu had a thing for Shin, so if she played nice, the family was set for life. The mom was over the moon. The cousin scoffed, reminding her that this was all thanks to Grandpa's scheming. A few minutes later, the sisters walked in. Lu scanned them like he was shopping for merchandise and gave a thumbs up on the selection. Shin's mood crashed the second she saw her grandfather, especially since the old liar had promised to leave them alone. Grandpa introduced Lu as her new companion. The guy cleared his throat, looking at her like a snack he couldn't wait to devour. Her mom leaned in and practically hissed, ordering her not to blow this golden opportunity. Grandpa was annoyed she didn't say hello, but Lu waved it off, saying it was actually kind of cute how shy she was on a first date. The guy tried to flex, listing off the companies he owned, but Shin just turned her back on him. It took everything the old man had not to scream at her right there. Mom wasn't having it and asked if the family was boring her. Then the cousin actually slapped Shin, screaming that she was a nobody and had no right to act stuck up. She loomed over the protagonist's wife, demanding she beg Lu for forgiveness this instant. Just then, Lu cut in, mentioning casually that scoring tickets to the gala had become a total nightmare lately. Shin sat on the sofa, nursing her stinging cheek while they threatened to revoke her invitation. The cousin latched onto Lu's arm, chirping that Grandpa would fix everything. A nasty grin spread across Lu's face as he added a new condition. He needed a +1, or rather, a +2. Jan was coming with him as well. Jan looked horrified, but Grandpa just lit a cigarette and shrugged, telling the guy he could take both sisters if he wanted. Mom started yelling at Shin to get with the program. Lu grabbed the confused girl and barked at the sisters to get moving. In his twisted mind, he thought he was doing the girls a favor one night with him and they'd get their little reward. Shin tried to resist, but the guy whispered a threat about her husband and daughter's safety. Seeing the beauty crumble and obey his rules gave him a sick thrill. Our hero was watching the whole disgusting scene from the shadows of the staircase, eyes narrowing. He pulled out his phone and called Ching. Cancel the Yan family's invites. All of them. Only Shin gets in. Outside, the sisters were at the gate and Lu was about to leave, but Ching materialized out of nowhere and blocked his path. "You're not taking her anywhere," she ordered. The girl's expression was stone cold. "Try it, and prepare for a tragic ending." Lu laughed, assuming this pretty girl was just jealous and wanted a ticket for herself. But his smile vanished when Ching dropped the bomb. His invitation had been disqualified. Shin stared at the newcomer, wondering who this mystery woman was who always showed up to save them. The mom scoffed, refusing to believe a family worth $1 billion could be uninvited. She decided the girl was just a paid actress. Ching was done talking. Shin told her not to worry, but Lu wasn't backing down. He threatened to make Shin kneel before him. That was the last straw. A hand flew out and delivered a massive slap right across his face. The guy hit the dirt, screaming in rage. He yelled that she was dead meat, but Ching just glared and threatened to cut his tongue out if he kept talking. Suddenly, Grandpa stormed into the courtyard. He was fuming, realizing his precious tickets were slipping away. He started blaming Shin, who looked totally lost. He wound up to scream at her, but Ching cut him off with a shout. "I said what I said," she announced. "No tickets. You're all banned." Then she dropped the real bombshell. Out of the entire clan, only Shin was invited to the Benhai Gala. The family froze, and Grandpa was baffled. He had no clue who this Master Lin was that she kept mentioning. Ching bowed respectfully to Shin. "Your exclusive VIP pass will be here momentarily." Grandpa rolled his eyes. He didn't believe for a second that they handed out VIP passes to people standing in the street. Right on cue, a courier appeared with an envelope for Shin. Grandpa's jaw dropped. He couldn't deny it, but he couldn't figure out how she pulled it off. Lu scrambled up from the ground and recognized the courier. "Mr. Wang, what are you doing here?" He turned to the crowd, desperate. "See? That's the organizer. He'll prove I'm on the list." But Wang just looked at the bruised mess of a man. "Who is this clown?" Lu pointed to himself, shouting, "It's me! The heir to the Lu dynasty!" The event planner suddenly remembered the Lu family was a total no-show this year. Turns out, the old man got confirmation that the organizer had personally blacklisted them from the party. Right then, Wang signaled his assistant to toss Lu out the door before he could annoy the Grand Master. The man grabbed the letter with a smirk, honestly wondering who this Shin character actually was. The main character's wife was freaking out that this guy was tracking her down, but Wang just bowed and flashed an exclusive VIP invite from Mr. Lin, telling her she really needed to go. Shin took the bait, asking if this Lin was the same mystery guy who rented out the entire hotel for her. The messenger confirmed it wasn't the first time Lin had dropped luxury loot on the lady. Jan's eyes practically turned into dollar signs. She figured if her sister married this whale, they'd be set for life, so she begged to meet him. Meanwhile, the protagonist was watching the whole drama from his dorm window, thinking his sister-in-law had the memory of a goldfish. Wang shut that down immediately, explaining the boss was way too booked with important business to handle casual visits. Shin glared at the blonde girl, basically giving her a warning look to stay out of her business. Jan felt the killer intent in Shin's words and literally shivered, but she still snapped back that her sister wasn't going to dump her husband. The organizer announced his job was done, dropped a quick bow to Shin, and reminded her that he was out of there. Suddenly, the grandpa swooped in on his granddaughters, trying to figure out who this high roller from the birthday party was. Cousin Jan snatched the note, sneering, "What kind of love?" Jan honestly thought she was the only one hot enough for the party, but Shin refused to hand over the ticket she needed to verify if this master was actually her husband. But Grandpa threw a massive fit, accusing Shin of putting her loser husband and daughter above the family dynasty. He desperately wanted Shin to dump the protagonist and focus on marrying rich to upgrade their tax bracket. Since the old man thought Lin was nothing but dead weight, Shin sighed and said they could return the invite as long as her family didn't get caught in the crossfire. Jan was buzzing with joy, convinced Yin Shen didn't deserve a VIP pass, while the hero and the king watched the pathetic display from the shadows. Lin's servant wanted to go down there and wreck them, but the hero stopped him, promising, "Don't worry, we'll make them regret their entire existence later." Just then, King's phone blew up. The school director was on the line saying little Rue had been rushed to the ER. Hearing his daughter was out cold, Lin barked at Chin to start the car, and they drifted all the way to Binhai Central Hospital in record time. The doctor was staring intensely at the test results when Chin and Lin burst into the room, demanding an update on the girl. We ruled everything else out, the doctor admitted. It looks like a relapse of that ancient sickness. Lynn sat on the edge of the bed, desperate. Can we do a marrow transplant again? The doctor shook his head. Not yet. We need to get Dr. Lee in here stat. The protagonist blinked in surprise. Dr. Lee is in town? The doctor nodded. Yeah. He flew back the second he heard rumors about the Master awakening. Lynn didn't waste a second, ordering his servant to go drag the famous doctor here immediately. The hospital doctor looked nervous. Do you actually understand how critical this is? Lynn looked crushed. He had no clue what was really going on with his daughter. Turns out, the doctor explained, 2 years ago she awakened both the Imperial and Royal bloodlines at the same time. That's why she's in a coma. The protagonist felt his stomach drop, but then Dr. Lee strutted into the room like a rock star, promising the big guy he was there to save the princess. The old doctor was so hyped to see Lynn again, he actually started tearing up. The crying was making the tough guys awkward, so they stood in silence until the god of war cleared his throat to ask about the dangerous blood fusion. Normally, he said, mixing royal and imperial magic is impossible. It shouldn't exist in one person. However, Dr. Lee interrupted, there are currently only 3 people alive who carry both bloodlines. The hero nodded. I have both, and there's that guy in the capital. But who's the third? Lee paused for dramatic effect. It's Rui. Suddenly, the doctor's magical aura flared up, which totally ticked off the protagonist. Ching, handle this! In a blur, the girl was behind the old man with a hand near his neck. Explain yourself before you touch her, she hissed. Lee's sweat dropped. Look, Lynn's royal bloodline was banned personally years ago. It shouldn't have passed to his kid. Do you want to know why this is happening? Lynn was confused about where the Imperial side came from, but signaled King to let the doctor go. The old man adjusted his collar. If she stays by my side, I can cloak her aura so nobody recognizes the forbidden bloodline. Lynn really hoped that would work and decided to trust the wizard for now. Shin suddenly remembered the school had called the mother, so she'd be inbound any second. I got a ghost, the hero realized, telling Lee to cover for him with a fake story just as his wife came sprinting down the hallway. She was a nervous wreck, totally ignoring Sun, who tried to ask what she was doing there. San got smacked upside the head by his friend. Dude, back off. This drama isn't our business. She's terrified for the kid, Sun whispered. And you know what that means? She's going to need serious cash for the medical bills. Lou knew the family was broke and smirked, ready to use this tragedy to force the blonde into begging for his help. Suddenly, Yikin kicked the door open, screaming, "What happened to my daughter?" "Shh, keep it down," he hushed her, desperate not to wake the sleeping beauty. The girl blinked, confused. She wasn't expecting a bonus physician alongside Shin. "Who's the grandpa?" she asked. Dr. Chen introduced the old master as his mentor, swearing that Ru was totally safe. Then, time snap asterisk. He clicked his fingers, and Ru started tossing in bed again. Acupuncture magic. Suddenly, Ru's eyes popped open. She scanned the room like a radar, hunting for her dad. She was positive she'd heard his voice. Her mom stepped into view, soothing her. "You passed out at school, honey. Lucky for us, this wizard of a doctor saved the day with some ancient medicine." Ru looked at the old man. "I know you," she realized. "You're the brilliant doctor." The old guy got all misty-eyed. He couldn't believe the little one was so sweet to him. He leaned in and gave the kid a squeeze. Shin, meanwhile, was sweating bullets about the bill her family wouldn't give her a single penny to pay for this. The doctor clocked her panic immediately. "Put your wallet away," he said. "No charge. I'm here on orders from Mr. Lin." That clinched it. Ru realized she hadn't been hallucinating. She really did hear her dad's voice. Shin jumped on that immediately. "Okay, Doc, spill it. Who is this mister?" Lin couldn't blow his cover yet, so the doctor played it cool. "Let's just say Lin is the big boss of the southern border. And yours truly. You'll get the full story when the time is right." He tucked the kid back in, handed the mom a business card, and said, "Ring me if you need anything." Seriously. Now that Ru was conscious, the old man was satisfied she was in the clear. He waved goodbye and strolled out of the infirmary. The girl tugged at her mom's sleeve. "Mom, really?" Dad invited Dr. Lee. I heard him talking while I was asleep. Shin usually brushed off her daughter's wild stories, but this time, she wanted to believe. She desperately wanted the mysterious Mr. Lin to be her husband, even if he felt like a stranger these days. It would explain so much about his personality. The only thing bugging her was why the main character of this drama didn't just tell her he was awake to begin with. Rue noticed her mom spiral into deep thought. It was clearly stressing her out, even though the woman was acting like everything was peachy. She winked at her daughter. All right, let's bounce. Home time. But Dr. Chen jumped in, blocking the path. Whoa! Hold up! The little princess needs to stay under observation for a few more days. Shin bit her lip, anxious about leaving Rue solo at the hospital. But her daughter looked weirdly inspired. Go, Mom! I need some me time anyway, she promised. So the kid stayed behind, waiting to get back to 100%. Meanwhile, our protagonist was still lurking in the hospital. He cornered a subordinate. Any dirt on the head of the Jan family yet? The king didn't waste a second. He'd already dug up something sketchy. The investigation is in, boss. The whole family is full of NPCs, totally average. But Shin's dad? He was an anomaly. The protagonist searched his memory. He'd only met his wife's father once, right before the guy kicked the bucket. The subordinate nodded. Confirmed. And get this, there were rumors he wasn't the rightful heir. Lin's interest peaked. If that was true, his wife's family status was built on a lie. Lee chimed in, I used my VIP connections to dig deeper. Turns out, the emperor had heirs with light-colored hair. That detail was a smoking gun. It meant Shin's dad might have been a descendant of the emperor, though proving it was impossible. The old doctor changed the subject. I want the princess as my student. Lin gave the green light for the man to teach the girl how to control her powers. Anything else on your wish list? Actually, yes, Lee asked. Get me into the Bin Hai celebration. He was dying to see Lin make his grand return. Meanwhile, Shin had no choice but to leave her kid at the hospital, telling her to listen to every word Dr. Chen said. I'll be back right after work, promise, Shin assured Rue. She gave her a quick pep talk that everything would be fine, then waved goodbye. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was her cousin. Shin rolled her eyes. She'd already agreed to the invite. What more did the woman want? Jan barked an order. Get to the company, now. 30 minutes later, Shin walked toward the finance department, only to hear screaming loud enough to shatter glass. Jan was inside, clutching a coffee cup and raging at the staff like a maniac. What are you idiots doing? Shin didn't want to see her cousin, but she had to figure out why she'd been summoned. The girl spun around to face Shin, looking shocked that she'd asked such a dumb question. You're the finance manager, Jan yelled, and you're slacking off while the company is in meltdown mode. She hurled the hot coffee at Shin. Asterisk, swoosh asterisk. Shin dodged it like a ninja. I booked today off, she snapped. Liar, Jan screamed. That's half a month's salary gone. And next time? Shin tried to argue, but it was useless. The girl was convinced the company's crisis was entirely the fault of people like Shin. The blonde completely ignored the fact that the crisis was her time's fault, considering all the accounts went through her. The cousin doubled down. Fix this mess in 3 days, or you're fired. 3 days? That was insane. Shin thought Jan was pranking her, but the look on her face was dead serious. Fail, and you're out, the cousin repeated. Jan looked smug, totally convinced Shin would crash and burn. Meanwhile, Sun was chilling in the office. Like Liu Hu, I'm tired of waiting, he said. But Jan swore there wouldn't be any hiccups with Shin this time. Liu was already drooling over the idea of getting leverage on the girl. Sam grinned, confident they'd win, but his friend couldn't relax. He knew this wasn't their first scheme to go sideways. Don't sweat it, Sun replied. I've got plan B ready if the first one flops. Then, San questioned Jan's big talk, which made the cousin nervous. I won't tell a soul, she snapped. Jan winked, and the men silently agreed that the gene pool really hadn't been fair to her intelligence-wise. Lou pressed his friend. What's the plan? I need to be ready for anything. Sun laid it out. Shin has 2 weak spots. One is her tiny daughter. The other, her husband, Lin. Back at the hospital, the protagonist walked into his daughter's room. Hey kiddo, he asked, how would you like to be Dr. Lee's apprentice? The king's daughter looked up, eyes wide. Will he teach me how to heal people? The war god was in full doting dad mode, about to drop some wisdom on what Lee would be teaching, when bam, Ching appeared out of nowhere to crash the party. Talk about bad timing. He came bearing bad news. Shin's company was in deep trouble. Apparently, the Jen family was plotting to snatch their house to pay off the debts. Yikes. Lin wasn't having it and demanded to know which shadow-dwelling villain was pulling the strings. His minion dropped the intel. Spies had spotted Lu and Sun lurking around the finance department together. Suspicious much? Ray was totally freaking out about Mom, but Dad went into full hero mode, convincing her he'd handle the mess solo so their daughter could just focus on getting better. Shin, being the loyal sidekick, waited for orders. He decided those clowns could wait. Prioritizing Shin was the main quest right now. The bad guys would get their beatdown later. Meanwhile, the war god's wifey was stuck in her office for hours, doom spiraling. It was a total disaster. Every investor had bailed, and even the bank slammed the door on a loan. Ouch. She was stressing hard. She had exactly 1 day to fix this magical mess before it was game over. Her panic spiral was interrupted by footsteps. Sun barged in without knocking rude much. He was sticking to his creepy plan, swoop in while she's desperate and play the knight in shining armor. He strolled in all casual, acting like he was there to nobly save the day. Yeah, right. Shin stood up and shut that down immediately. She wasn't buying what he was selling. She told him to get lost, but the guy wouldn't quit. He tried to guilt trip her, reminding her that her family was about to be homeless. Even that low blow didn't crack her resolve. He gave some fake speech about always helping people gag me, then claimed he'd stop bothering her and headed for the door. But then, the classic trap card. If you change your mind, come to the hotel at 9 tomorrow morning. Shin was furious. She screamed that she'd never make a deal with a slimeball like him. He didn't argue, just smirked and said he'd be waiting. That's when it clicked for our protagonist's wife. Her own cousin had set this whole nightmare up. Betrayal alert. Cut to Shin's mom, drowning in paperwork. She was totally confused, asking why the heck the company's junk was being shipped to their house. Shin didn't have a choice. She dropped the bomb. The Jen family was repossessing the house. Bye-bye, home sweet home. Mom went nuclear. She was sick of the constant drama raining down on them. Her brilliant solution? Just ask that guy Lin for help. In her mind, it was an easy fix, like waving a wand. But Shin shot back that she'd never even met the guy. Of course, Lei just started playing the blame game, dumping all the family's misfortune on her daughter's shoulders. Typical toxic parenting. Shin couldn't bear to let them down. Since the Wang family ghosted her letter, she was out of options. She had to ask Sunday. Ugh. The next morning, the clock ticked closer to the dreaded meeting time. She arrived at the hotel, heart pounding, and spotted the room number. Here goes nothing. She stormed in, yelling at Zun that she was there, but the dude by the window wasn't him. She was too busy staring at the floor to notice until Hang turned around and gave her a friendly wave. Shin looked up and saw Wang. Her brain went into overdrive. Was he teaming up with the Sun family to crush her company? A conspiracy. The guy walked over to the blonde and cleared things up fast. Huge misunderstanding, he said. I'm in a rush. Just take this. He handed her a fat check. Hang added that Mr. Lin was pulling the strings to fix everything. He'd even used a little magic trick to swap the room numbers on Sunday. That's why she found him instead of the creep. Shin was over the moon. She was seriously grateful to her mysterious savior. Huang didn't stick around for applause, though he left her there, safe and sound. Outside, his face went stone cold. He met up with the main character and reported that the wife's problem was history. Now it was time for Lin to go punish the idiot who started this. Meanwhile, Leo, HAA, was fuming in the other room. He was mad that Shin hadn't shown up yet, muttering about how stubborn she was to crack. His phone buzzed. Jan was on the screen, bragging that he could kidnap anyone he wanted. Real charming friends you got there, dude. Suddenly, a knock. He sprinted to the door, thinking his prey had arrived. Surprise, it wasn't Shin. Standing there was someone completely unexpected. It was Jin. And she introduced herself with a brutal kick to his face. Liu went flying backward, crashing into the table and sending dishes everywhere. Strike! The kick busted his lip open. Liu was dazed, totally confused why this random, dangerous girl was crashing his party and haunting him. Ching didn't bother explaining. She stepped aside for the boss. Lu stared, realizing the guy looked familiar. The protagonist introduced himself, veteran soldier, former army legend, and oh yeah, the supreme. Lu started shaking like a leaf, pure terror. He couldn't figure out why a titan like that would care about Shin. "She's my wife," Lin dropped the mic, shoving the guy to the floor. The idiot still couldn't process it. He didn't believe a guy rumored to be disabled could be the supreme leader. The protagonist flared his aura major power move. "I don't care if you believe me." He bent down, grabbed Lu by the collar, and hoisted him into the air like a rag doll. Lin only had one goal: make this guy pay. And the bill was coming due right now. This rich kid actually thought his daddy's money would protect him. Spoiler alert, it didn't. He got launched into the wall with enough force to crack the plaster. Badly hurt, and finally realizing he was out of his league, he started groveling. He begged for mercy, promising to pay any amount of cash to save his skin. Lin looked at him with cold eyes. "Do I look like I need your money?" Ching smirked in the background as her master made sure the guy felt the full weight of his mistake. With a broken arm and a body full of regret, Liu was done. The protagonist decided that was enough carnage for one day. "Consider this a warning," he said. Lin wanted to make sure the message stuck. Next time, there wouldn't be any mercy. He turned to leave, sticking to his rule of keeping his true identity on the down low. As they strutted down the hotel hallway, Qin asked if Lin was worried about any backlash. The protagonist didn't blink. "If his family tries anything, I'll wipe them all out." Dark. Suddenly, a phone rang, pausing the tough guy talk. King's face went pale. It was Dr. Chen with a nightmare update. The little princess had been kidnapped and nobody knew where she was. Lin lost his cool instantly. They raced to the hospital at breakneck speed, all while trying to keep the news from Shin so she wouldn't panic. They found Dr. Chen at the scene. The war god demanded answers. Chen stammered that he'd brought her breakfast, went to prep for physio, and when he came back, poof, she was gone. The protagonist loathed himself for letting his daughter get taken. Pure rage surged through his veins, and with a single stomp, he shattered the infirmary floor into dust. Chen dropped to his knees, utterly defeated, admitting it was all on him and that he should have kept a closer eye on the little princess. But the boss wasn't having it. "Get up. I don't blame you," he said, noting the doctor was busy doing his job. Chen just blinked, totally thrown off by the lack of punishment. Lin barked an order for Chen to hit the checkpoint and hunt down the kidnapper. Meanwhile, some security guard was slacking off in his booth, glued to a video game. "Come on, almost there," he muttered, sure of his victory. He didn't notice Ching looming right behind him like a vengeful ghost. She tapped his shoulder, ruining his kill streak. "Patient missing. I need the camera feed. Now." The guy just sighed. "Whoa, hold your horses. I need detail." "It's a little girl," Ching snapped, losing patience. "She's been gone for about an hour." The guard rolled his eyes at Qin. 1 hour? Seriously? Protocol says look around the hospital first before bothering security. He went back to tapping his screen. "Come back when it's been a day." Suddenly time zap asterisk. A blast of energy knocked the phone right out of his hands, scaring the daylights out of the grown man. Lin wasn't here to play nice. He was done waiting. "Hey!" the guard shouted, puffing up his chest. "You can't do that! And get out! This is a restricted area!" Lin's aura flared up pure, terrifying killing intent. Chin saw things were about to get messy, so she jumped in, flashing a golden badge. "Imperial family business. Back off." The guard's jaw hit the floor. That symbol? That was the top of the food chain. Ultimate authority. Pull the footage. "Now," Shin warned, eyeing Lin, who was barely holding it together. The guard didn't need telling twice. He scrambled to the keyboard. He scrubbed through the last hour of records until bingo. There was Rue, clearly visible, fast asleep in her room. Lin leaned in close to the monitor. Enhance that bottom panel. On screen, a guy in a white lab coat scooped the sleeping kid up and walked off. The guard squinted at the pixelated figure. Wait, that guy looks familiar. Lin's ears perked up. "It's an intern," the guard stammered. "Name's Shao Gang." "Never heard of him," Shin muttered. "Yeah, he's a nobody," the guard added. "Not exactly employee of the month. Only got the gig because he knows people." Come to think of it, he was asking about the blind spots in the cameras 2 days ago. Well, that wasn't suspicious at all. Lin's control started to crack. 5 minutes, he growled. Bring him to me. The girl didn't waste a second arguing. She vanished from the office to hunt him down. The air in the room felt heavy, like gravity just doubled. The guards started sweating bullets, terrified he'd be the next target. You could feel Lin's murderous vibe from a mile away. He slumped into a chair while the guard wondered if all royals were this terrifyingly intense. Mission accomplished. A few minutes later, Zoe was dragged into the office like a sack of potatoes. She tossed him at Lin's feet, found him lurking in the hallway. We grabbed him instantly. "Hey, I'm a doctor. I work here," the prisoner spat. Lin ignored the attitude. "Where did you take the child?" Zoe blinked, feigning ignorance. "Child? What child?" Wrong answer. Lin planted his foot on the guy's shoulder and pushed, asterisk, crunch, asterisk. The floor beneath them started to fracture from the sheer pressure. He ground his heel down until Shao's right hand was pinned flat against the concrete. Ching and the guard watched the interrogation in stunned silence. The brutality was off the charts. The kidnapper broke instantly, screaming, "Okay, stop! Someone hired me to do it!" The God of War smirked. Finally, a valid reason to let the monster out of the cage. Lin stood up and delivered a casual backhand. It looked light, but so went flying, coughing up a mouthful of crimson liquid. No time for a breather. Lin stomped on his chest, pinning him to the ground like a bug under a boot. Shao went limp, playing dead. Nice try. "Master, let me make him talk," Ching offered, but Lin shook his head. "I don't have time for games." Realizing this guy would actually kill him, the young doctor panicked. I'll talk. I know where Rui is." Gasping for air, he spilled the beans. Sunday, he put her in his car, took her to his estate. That name didn't shock Lin, but it sealed Sun's fate. The guy was a dead man walking. "He forced me," Shao cried. "Let me go." Lin stared cold daggers. "You made a massive mistake, kid. Even death is too good for you." "Dispose of the trash," Lin told Ching, gesturing to the body. "Then meet me at Sun's place." Over at Sun's mansion, things were quiet, except for Rue. Tied to a chair, she was screaming her lungs out. "Uncle Sun, let me go!" "The police will arrest you," she threatened. Sun just laughed, swirling his drink. "Please. Without proof? Nobody touches a powerful family like ours." The guy was a total creep. "Your mother owes me," he sneered, blaming Shin for everything. "Consider yourself the payment for ruining my life." He pinched her cheeks hard. "My mom never did anything wrong," Rue yelled, struggling against the ropes. "And my daddy is going to save me." Sun flicked her forehead, hard. "Don't say his name," he snapped. "That piece of garbage is the reason we're in this mess." Rue started to sob loudly. Suddenly, times crash, asterisk. The sound of shattering glass filled the room. Lin materialized behind Sun and instantly connected a fist to his face. Sun flew back, smashing right through the wall and hitting the dirt. Rue looked up, and the tears stopped instantly. Daddy was here. Rue's face lit up the moment she saw Lin. He rushed over to untie her, whispering promises that everything was going to be okay. The little girl told her daddy she knew he would come for her while he frantically scanned her small friend. She mentioned that the creepy guy had managed to smack her forehead, and she made sure to emphasize this, the pain vanished the second her dad showed up. Lin scooped Rue up into his arms. "You ready to teach this dirtbag a lesson?" he asked. The little girl nodded enthusiastically. "You bet." Sun shuddered as the girl told her father she couldn't remember exactly which hand the guy used, only that it really stung. San decided to seize the opening and bolt for the door, mind racing about how Lin tracked him down so fast. Meanwhile, the God of War listened intently to his princess's story, his eyes narrowing as he connected them. Sun was inches from the exit, convinced he'd be safe once he hit the street. Surely Lin wouldn't beat him to a pulp in front of a crowd, right? Big mistake. He forgot he was dealing with the God of War, a man whose speed defied physics and baffled the human mind. Sun's escape attempt flopped instantly. Now, punishment was inevitable. Lin glared at the terrified kidnapper. "I don't recall giving you permission to leave." With every passing second, The gravity of his mistake crushed down on Sun, filling him with pure dread. Desperate, he tried a cheap shot, aiming for the arm holding the girl. Then Zun sprinted like his life depended on it, screaming for his parents to come save him. Obviously, he didn't get far. Lin had a vice grip on his hand. With a casual flick, Lin twisted Zun's arm, wringing a pained shriek out of him. Rue covered her ears with her tiny hands. "Daddy, he's being way too loud," she complained. "Don't worry, sweetie, the bad uncle is going to be quiet now," Lin promised. A blue flame ignited in his left hand and shot towards Sunday. He screamed so loudly the girl had to squeeze her eyes shut. Sun's vision went black. His screams dissolved into barely audible squeaks as he collapsed to the floor, a heap of misery. Just then, the clan head burst into the room. He'd heard the screams. He rushed in, begging for his son's life before he even saw the damage. The father stared in horror at his son. It was bad. His chest was scorched, his body a map of bruises, and his eyes had rolled back into his head. The older man dropped to his knees before the god of war, pleading for mercy, begging him to forgive Sun's stupid mistake. But the hero remained stone cold. He had zero sympathy for anyone who touched his daughter. The clan head knew right then they were completely outmatched. Suddenly, another figure materialized in the room. It was Cheng, reporting that the hospital was secure. Rue jumped, startled by the sudden arrival. "It's okay," her dad explained. "This auntie is a friend. No need to be scared." Lin handed Rue over to Cheng so he could finish dealing with the trash. Only the boy's father remained, paralyzed by fear. Rue held onto Cheng's shoulders and whispered a wish for her dad to successfully punish the bad guys. With Rue out of the room, the protagonist finally unleashed his full aura. He remembered showing mercy once before, not today. The clan head tried to reason with the god of war, but Lin cut him off. The man had no right to set conditions here. Sun tried to crawl away, whimpering, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. Lin ended it with a single, decisive strike. The father could do nothing but watch his own son meet his end. It was over. Lin coldly stated that it was too late to beg. He didn't believe in second chances for kidnappers. In a blur of motion, he closed the distance to Sun's father, who was still frozen in shock. The hero gripped the man's head. "Get your family out of this city within 24 hours, he warned. "Stay, and heads will roll." The father knew leaving was the only way to stay alive. Meanwhile, back at the Lee estate, another father stormed into a room, furious. He demanded to know who dared lay a hand on his son. He vowed to tear the culprit into literal pieces. Lee wanted to whine to his daddy like usual, but a terrifying thought stopped him. If he outed Lin, the man would obliterate him. For the family's sake, he kept his mouth shut. He played dumb, acting apathetic. I don't know what to say. His father, enraged by this weakness, slapped him hard across the face. "Remember who we are. We own this city." Lee nursed his cheek, wondering if the Jian family actually held the real power. He decided to keep Lin's identity a secret for a little longer. His father scoffed, calling him weak. "Doesn't matter," he spat. "I don't need your story. I've already hired an investigator." On cue, a man stepped out of the shadows. He reported that he'd successfully linked the attacker to the Jian family. The father grinned, ready to wipe the Jians off the map, but he noticed the investigator lingering. "You have more news?" "I do," the man said. "Sun has been murdered. The killer is the same man who beat your son." A wave of cold horror washed over Lee. He realized he could have been next. His father sneered, dismissing Sun's clan as failures for letting someone from the Jian family get the better of them. Consumed by a thirst for vengeance, the man began plotting. He would strike the Jian family during the upcoming celebration banquet. Later, it was time for Xin to pick up her daughter from the hospital. She walked into the room, holding a cake and asking how Rue was feeling. Her heart stopped. The bed was empty. "Rue," she called out, voice trembling. No answer. Terror gripped her as she imagined the worst. Her hands went limp, and the cake box crashed to the floor. A second later, she heard her daughter's voice. Forgetting everything else, she rushed over, checking the girl frantically. Rue didn't want to worry her mom, so she fibbed. "Daddy just took me out for a bit." "Don't play with strangers," Shin chided gently. But she froze when Rue mentioned Lin had taken her to play. That didn't add up. She thought her husband had been home the whole time. From the shadows, Lin watched the scene unfold, noticing the smashed cake and realizing just how much his wife cherished their daughter. Lin stayed out of sight, whispering to himself with a heavy heart, she really is a good mother. The MC was freaking out about his massive debt, but Lin cut him off. Time to bounce, he said. We've got Benny's banquet tonight, so suit up. It reminded him of his last showdown, where he'd been ready to throw hands until his very last breath just to keep his family safe. Meanwhile, some guy was chilling in a pool, sipping wine like he owned the place. He glanced at his lackey and asked, So, rumor has it the great Lin is actually awake. That true? The henchman nodded grimly. Confirmed, sir. Word is he's already kicked one of the major families to the curb. The Dragon Lord scoffed, thinking it was just a theatrical flex. But in reality, that family had completely lost their grip on power. He's a threat to the Emperor, we should take him out, the lackey suggested. That ticked the boss off. Without even climbing out of the water, he blasted a wave of pure energy right at the servant. The guy went flying backward. I don't recall giving you permission to give orders, the Dragon Lord sneered. Scrambling up, the servant pleaded, But Majesty, leaving the God of War alive is too risky. The Dragon Lord disagreed. Lin had clout with the commoners, which made him a useful pawn. Still, he needs to be put on display, the Lord mused. The lackey bowed his head, promising to handle the arrangements immediately. The Dragon Lord waded to the center of the pool. His hand, looking monstrous and warped, reached for the spear. But the weapon rebelled, crackling with angry red lightning along its shaft. It fought him so hard he had to let go. The artifact completely rejected him. The backlash seared his hand, leaving a nasty wound. So, my Lin really is alive, he muttered. I think it's time to pay a little visit. Suddenly, grotesque eyes opened on his mutated hand, pooling with dark energy. If the Emperor couldn't wield the artifact, he decided he'd just smash it to pieces instead. Divine lightning blinded the room as the man laughed like a total maniac. Meanwhile, back at Lin's place, the family was having a chill, totally normal evening. Lin froze. A weird sensation hit him, and he realized with a shock the Thunder God's spear had just been obliterated. Chen saw his face go pale. What's wrong? He asked. Lin ignored the pleasantries. Where is the spear? The royals confiscated it after the border war, Shen explained, but that weapon is soul-bound to its master. Nobody else can actually use it. It doesn't matter, the protagonist said darkly. It was destroyed a few minutes ago. But that's a divine-class weapon, the girl cried. How is that even possible? It wasn't an accident, he replied. It was a warning. I know exactly who did this, Lin said. And I know for a fact he'll be at Benny's party tonight. Lin settled into his wheelchair, swearing to reclaim everything they stole. Outside, a figure clad in black shadow stepped toward the house, creeping up to the windows. Spotting Lin's bedroom, the assassin took aim. Asterisk. Crash. Asterisk. Glass shattered as a projectile tore through the window at breakneck speed. Assassin! Ching shouted. But Lin was faster. He ducked and snatched the flying blade out of the air without getting a single scratch. I'm on him, the subordinate yelled, diving out. Lin stayed put, studying the dragon god dagger he'd just caught. Downstairs, Jean and her mom were lounging in the living room when they heard the commotion. What was that? They whispered, trying to pinpoint the sound. Asterisk, click, asterisk, the power cut, plunging the room into darkness. Panic set in. As the women realized they weren't alone, there were multiple intruders in the house. Jean screamed as a shadowy figure loomed out of the darkness right in front of her. Who are you? How did you get in here? She stammered. The intruder didn't say a word. The masked man finally spoke, eyes locked on them. You're protecting the wrong person. Now you pay with your lives. A purple orb of energy began to swirl in his palm, ready to fire. Desperate, the mother tried to bargain. Please, just take whatever money we have and go. Take your cash to hell with you, the assassin scoffed. Yang clung to her mom, both of them trembling violently. Death seemed seconds away until a hand shot out of nowhere and grabbed the killer's wrist. It was Lin. Attacking weak women? Pathetic, he spat, twisting the guy's arm. He couldn't wrap his head around why anyone would target civilians. He might not be best friends with Yang's family, but he sure as hell wasn't going to let them die. Blue lightning crackled around Lin's fist. The assassin countered with his free hand, charging his own energy. Asterisk. Bam! Asterisk. They clashed, landing simultaneous hits. The merc stumbled back, but started laughing. He smirked, clearly thinking Lin was a lightweight. They traded blows until a knife materialized in the masked guy's grip. Suddenly, the front door handle turned. "That your family coming home?" the bandit taunted. Lin moved in a blur. By the time Shin and his daughter walked through the door, the room looked empty. Shin froze, seeing the women huddled in terror. Is your sister back?" Yang asked, voice shaking. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" Shin flipped the switch. The light revealed the wrecked room evidence of a brutal fight. "What on earth happened here?" he gasped. While the mom tried to catch her breath, Jang explained. "A maniac broke in, but someone stopped him. Someone saved us." "It looked like that guy Lin, the one from the birthday party," Yang added. Just then, Rue burst in, shouting, "Dad, you saved everyone!" Grandma rolled her eyes, looking disgusted. "Him? Useless," she muttered. Unseen by them, the hero had finished the fight and was back in the shadows, inspecting a golden dagger. Ching slipped through the window, looking grim. "I failed, sir. The target got away." "Forget him," Lin said, tossing the weapon to him. "Look at this." The subordinate's eyes widened. "This is a Dragon Lord service dagger." "And the Binhai Gala was rescheduled for tonight," Lin noted. "It all adds up. Go find Wang, immediately tell him to locate Axon and keep her safe. Now." The protagonist realized they were setting a trap for him at the Binhai Gala. Ching gave a knowing nod and vanished into the shadows. Boom! The bedroom door flew open, and his little girl came rocketing in like a heat-seeking missile of joy. She was totally convinced her dad was the secret mastermind behind saving her aunt and grandma. He didn't deny it, just ruffled her hair and told her she was sharp as a tack. Lin scooped her up. "What if I'm not some big-shot hero, huh?" Rui just beamed at him. "As long as you keep Mommy and me safe, you're Superman to me." Axon walked in right then, playing the buzzkill. "Honey, don't pester your father." She took Rui from him, insisting the guy needed more downtime. She was desperate for Lin to fully snap out of it. Suddenly, her phone started buzzing on the nightstand. It was Mr. Wang. "Change of plans. Party's early. I'm sending a car tomorrow." Axon hesitated, voice trembling. "But I don't actually have an invitation." Wang laughed it off. "That fancy card? Just a piece of cardboard. You're the guest of honor. You don't need a ticket." Rui chirped up, thrilled about the good news, apologizing for being loud. Axon patted her head. "All right, you're on guard duty. Watch over Daddy tomorrow night, okay?" The kid was pumped to have a daddy-daughter night. She wasn't scared of anything with him around. Fast forward 24 hours, the Binhai Gala was in full swing. The venue was dripping in gold and crystal. Axon, though, looked like she was walking to the gallows rather than a party. She was still rattled by the attack on their house. Her mother, charming as ever, didn't help calling her husband and kid useless baggage and nagging her to find a rich sugar daddy. Heads turned. Axon spotted her grandfather and that snake, January. Jan was clinging to her mom, fake crying about how mean her cousin was. Then she spotted her relatives. "Wait, how did trash like you get past security without an invite?" "We're VIPs. Mr. Wang invited us personally." Jan bragged loudly, twisting the truth. Some random guy next to her was too busy ogling her to care if she was lying. Axon's sister-in-law wasn't having it, waving the invitation and telling Jan to get lost. "That invite has my sister's name on it. Hand it over," she snapped. Jan sneered, "Please, only elites get these. You think you qualify?" The guy next to them finally looked down at the card and nearly choked on his drink. Purple and gold? That was the imperial color scheme. The rumors were true. The Yen family really was cozying up to the big leagues. Suddenly, a hand snatched the card away. "Fake," a voice declared. Jan tried to grab it back but got blocked. Talk about a buzzkill. Jan was fuming. Who was this random guy calling her golden ticket a forgery? "Watch your mouth," grandfather snapped at her. He bowed until he was practically scraping the floor. "This is the esteemed Mr. Joe." Jan's face went pale. She just mouthed off to a heavyweight. Meanwhile, the rest of the family was muttering about how low lifes like the Jians even got through the door. Her fear morphed back into indignation pretty fast, but before she could explode, Grandfather shut her down. The old man was apologizing profusely for the disrespect, looking pathetic. Joe just smirked, soaking up the submission from the clan head. Joe tossed the invitation aside like trash. "Your family beat up Lou," he spat. "I was going to let it slide, but now I think I'll destroy you instead." Jan blinked, totally lost. "What? We didn't lay a finger on Lou." Her eyes darted to Axon. Perfect scapegoat. Jan grabbed Axon's arm, screeching, "It was her! She beat him up because he wouldn't date her." "Are you insane?" Axon pulled away. "I didn't do anything." Lou's dad stepped forward, eyes cold. "Save the acting, sweetheart. Confess. Talk, or your entire clan is homeless by sunrise." The interrogation was cut short by a booming voice. Huang had arrived. And look who was trailing him. Lin, the kid, and King. Huang looked ready to murder anyone causing a scene at his party. Rui spotted her mom instantly. "Mommy!" She grabbed Lin's hand, bouncing. "Daddy prepared a big surprise for you." Joe curled his lip. "Who invited the circus?" Lou's father sneered. "That's Axon's husband, Lin Feng, the cripple in the wheelchair." Joe laughed so hard he nearly cried. "A cripple? What's the point of him even showing up?" "I'd save your breath if I were you," Lin cut in. Axon stared at him, eyes wide. Was he actually lucid? Rui skipped over to her mom, proud as a peacock. See, she wasn't lying. So the veggie woke up. "Big deal," Joe scoffed. "He's still stuck in the chair." Lin didn't say a word. He just stood up. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Joe's jaw dropped, but he recovered quickly. "Fine, you can stand? I'll just break your legs for what you did to Lou." Lin stood tall, silencing the crowd. Axon covered her mouth, tears spilling over. He was back. "It's okay," he told her softly. "I'm here." The moment was ruined when Jan flew at him, throwing punches. "How dare you wake up now?" Lin barely flicked his wrist, shoving her aside. He gave King a look. Asterisk. "Handle it." Asterisk. King stepped up and delivered a slap that echoed across the hall. Even with a red handprint on her face, Jan kept screaming threats. Joe jumped in, doubling down. "You think standing up changes anything? You're still trash." "Brain damage or not," Joe spat, "you're nothing but broken garbage." Lou's dad nodded in grim agreement. Lin didn't even blink. "You have 5 minutes before the Lou family is erased from this city." King pulled out his phone. On it, Joe and Lou's dad howled with laughter. The cripple thought he could bankrupt a dynasty? Please. But the party was cut short. The old man got a ring bad news. The company just nosedived, and every single investor was bailing out fast. To make matters worse, the banks slammed the door on any loans. Now they owe billions and are staring down the barrel of total bankruptcy. Liu's dad stood there, totally shell-shocked. Meanwhile, Joe was sweating bullets. His family's fortune was tied up in this sinking ship too. With 0 options left, the old geezer had to swallow his pride and grovel at Lin's feet. All he got in return was a look of pure disgust. Joe held his ground, convinced the protagonist was just some nobody. He refused to bow, thinking he could crush Lin whenever he felt like it. The hero unleashed a terrifying aura, flashing a wicked grin as he asked if the guy was ready to dance. Joe regretted his big mouth instantly. He started backpedaling, shouting that Lin couldn't touch a royal envoy sent to the Bainai banquet. He even flashed the royal family badge, claiming he was only there because Supreme Lin was supposedly too sick to make it. According to him, the man went back to the capital for rehab. Total chaos, total bankruptcy. Suddenly, Lin snatched the emblem right out of his hand. The guy started shaking like a leaf, demanding to know how he dared rob the royal family. With a blast of blue energy, the hero crushed the badge to dust. He announced that the rumors of Supreme Lin's return to the capital were total fake news. Breaking that seal? Basically, a declaration of war. Jay told her grandfather they needed to cut ties with this crippled lunatic immediately, or the Jean family was going to go down with him. Little Rue jumped into the mix the second she heard them trash-talking her dad. She shouted that Lin wasn't a coward like Jan's bunch and could handle his own business. Jan tried to slap the kid while screaming at her to shut it, but Lin shoved the woman away from his daughter with supernatural force. He gave Jay a cold reminder. You don't get to insult the Supreme's daughter and walk away. Shin's cousin hit the dirt after another slap to the face. She kept running her mouth, calling the hero trash, until it finally clicked he just called himself Supreme Lin. Joe was dying to know if Lin was really the top boss of the Southern Territory. Right on cue, Ching returned to her master, handing over his military uniform. The main character suited up in a flash, admitting he's the Southern Supreme, but told her she could just call him Lin Feng. Shay was totally floored, asking if her husband was actually the mysterious guy helping her all along. The hero just grinned and nodded. She couldn't believe she'd let such a powerhouse slip through her fingers to her cousin. The crowd was just as shocked to see the Supreme in the flesh. Old Lee joined the party, calling everyone morons for missing the obvious medal on Lin's uniform. The guests gasped when the royal family's doctor showed up. L dropped to his knees before the hero, swearing loyalty until the end of time. Lin told the doc to skip the formalities, but So was still living in denial, loudly claiming he didn't believe Lin Feng and Supreme Lin were the same guy. In his head, the hero just hired an actor. Dr. Lee couldn't handle the disrespect and slammed a fist right into the guy's gut. The kid hit the deck, clutching his stomach, whining that an old man shouldn't be beating up on the youth. He tried to threaten the doctor, bragging about VIPs in his family who wouldn't let this slide. Gathering energy in his hands, he vowed to take down these superiors once Cho was out of the picture. A split second later, the guy got launched across the room with a punch to the face. Lee asked the Supreme Leader for orders. The hero simply told Wan to kick out the Shou family, the Liu family, and the Jan family. They weren't on the guest list anyway. The real banquet starts once the trash is taken out. Jan and her grandpa realized they were getting booted, but the girl screamed that Shin should be kicked out too. After all, she's a Yan family member. While the old man argued with his granddaughter, it finally dawned on Chang that his brother-in-law was actually Supreme Lin. His mom was mortified, remembering how trashy she'd treated him all this time. Meanwhile, the nobles raised their glasses to toast the Supreme's return. They finally got to see the legend with their own eyes. Outside, the Jan family was tossed to the curb. Amidst the whining, the grandpa admitted it made sense Lin was a huge deal general before he ended up in that wheelchair. But the girl was convinced the protagonist was just cosplaying as the Supreme. She vowed to seduce Lin, certain that Shin wasn't worthy of a man like that. Meanwhile, back in the capital, the young emperor, the Dragon Lord, got some alarming updates. Chi-H had been taken down by Qin, and Lin hadn't just kicked him out of the party, he'd smashed the royal family emblem to pieces. The emperor's eyes blazed with fury. He assumed Qin was cutting all ties with the crown to team up with Lin. He ordered his minion to fix this immediately. Trembling, the servant stuttered that he couldn't even get within a mile of them. The Dragon Lord roared, blasting a beam of purple light that ensnared the terrified servant. His voice boomed. The Shou family was cleared to wipe out the J family, and they were authorized to use weapon number 1 against Lin if needed. Gasping for air, the servant agreed to get it done. The emperor scoffed, saying he might have spared the useless fool if he'd stayed crippled, but now he planned to crush him completely. Later, as the banquet wound down, Lin headed home with his wife and daughter. Shin's mom whispered to the younger sister that they'd hit the jackpot today. But Rue noticed her mom looked sad despite the party and quietly tipped off her dad. Once they were inside, Lei started flexing the bling she got from some noble perks of being the Supreme's mother-in-law. Kian nearly choked when she saw the stash, and the two of them started squealing like teenagers, screaming about how they were filthy rich. Amidst the hype, Shin coolly mentioned she and Lin had a bombshell to drop, but the girls, too busy drooling over the jewelry to listen. Shin told Rui to scoot to her room grown-up talk time. She promised to come up for tuck-in duty later, and Lin swore he'd be right there with her. Like a good kid, she marched upstairs. That left the room dead silent, with every pair of eyes locked on Lin. Someone asked when he finally snapped out of his coma. Lin said it happened instantly when he saw his little girl getting bullied. Bam! Out of nowhere, Shin slapped him across the face. Tears streaming, she chewed him out. "You could have told me sooner! Do you have any idea how much pain we could have skipped?" Lin gently grabbed her hand. He admitted he'd been awake but kept his mouth shut, terrified she'd leave him for that other guy. Shin yanked her hands away, turning her face aside. She confessed bitterly that she had zero options if she wanted to keep their daughter safe and fed. That's when Lin pulled her into a hug, whispering that she and Rui were his entire world. "Starting today, nobody touches you guys ever again." Deeply moved, Shin finally melted into the hug. With the emotional stuff settled, Lin finally felt chill enough to focus on the mission ahead. He had to unlock the royal bloodline and track down the big three generals, White Tiger, Red Bird, and Xuan. They were part of the master plan now. The next morning, the fam sat down for breakfast. Chang scrolled through the news, casually asking if his brother-in-law was actually the legendary Supreme Lin. Apparently, the guy's face was breaking the internet with rumors of the powerful general's return. Lin just shrugged. "Believe whatever floats your boat." Trying to suck up, Kian claimed she'd been looking after him all this time. Lin thanked her for the care, even though he knew she was totally lying through her teeth. Suddenly, the front door slammed open. Shin's mom stormed in, clutching an envelope, with Chan trailing right behind her. The old lady started screaming that Lin was a fraud posing as the Supreme, putting the whole Yan family in the crosshairs. Shin stayed cool, asking, "What are you even talking about?" The woman tossed the envelope onto the table. "See for yourself." As Shin opened it, Can smirked, revealing he'd dug up dirt, proving Lin wasn't the big shot he claimed to be. The files claimed our main guy was just some unemployed nobody from Nilu village in the Binhai district. Shin was shocked, but she refused to call her husband a scammer. Lin stared Can down, icily telling him to quit stalling and spit out why he really came. Shin's cousin puffed up with arrogance, announcing she was delivering orders straight from Grandpa. "As of today, you're all kicked out of the Yan family, and Shin, you're fired." She added that Grandpa wanted them out of the house. Like, right now. Lin looked at his daughter and asked softly, "Hey, do you want to go live in a big fancy house?" Rui nodded yes, though her voice was shaking with fear. Shin was still freaking out about losing her job and their future, but her husband told her to chill. He had it covered. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law was muttering curses, calling them both total losers. Lin ignored the toxic vibes, focusing 100% on protecting his girls. He dialed King, ordering him to swing by and drive them over to the Vigu Lake District. Hearing that, Jan burst into mocking laughter. "Vigu Lake? Please, that place is strictly for millionaires, not trash like you." While she accused him of faking the Supreme status again, Lin calmly told his wife, "Let's go." She followed, without blinking. With a sneer, Jan asked, "What? Are you planning to sleep on the streets with Shin and Rui?" As they packed up, Lin remembered this house was actually his wedding gift to them, but now he was more than happy to leave it in the dust. That's when King pulled up. Yan recognized the high-ranking subordinate instantly, and the gears started turning. Her brother-in-law wasn't lying. The truth hit her like a truck. Lin really was times the Supreme. Desperate to cling to power, she grabbed her mom's arm to tag along, but the mom, convinced Lin was a fraud, refused to budge. Annoyed that nobody was taking her seriously, Jan grumbled as the car drove away without them. Soon enough, the main character pulled up to his new estate. Rui's eyes practically sparkled as she looked around. Lin told King to keep an eye on the kid. He obeyed, taking Rui on a grand tour. Noticing Shin looking gloomy, Lin asked, "Hey, what's wrong?" She admitted she was terrified this was all just a dream. Lin cupped her face gently. "It's real. We're going to be a happy family again. I promise." "I might not be back to full power yet," he added with conviction, "but I'll protect you. Nobody bullies you ever again." Shin still looked skeptical. Trying to get a smile out of her, Lin suddenly shouted, "I bought the only villa in all of Vinhai City with an ocean view. Do you like it?" He grinned. Shin finally cracked up, teasing, "People shouldn't know the Supreme General has such a cute side." Lin replied, "This side is VIP access only, family only." Just then, his phone buzzed, and he stepped away to answer. Shin took Rui inside to give him space. Into the phone, Lin said, "I'm on my way." His wife knew better than to ask details. He explained it was military business and he had to bounce. Rui screamed for her dad to play, but Lin told Shin, "I'll probably be gone for 2 or 3 days." She was terrified of being left alone, but she forced a smile. "I'll take care of Rui. You go focus on work." He kissed her forehead, promising, "King is staying right here to keep you two safe." Hours later, our guy rolled into the army office. Long Tu rushed over, basically tackling Lin with a hug. "Man, I missed you." The other soldiers looked confused until Long shouted, "You idiots! This is Supreme Lin, the top boss of the Binhai military." Instantly, the men bowed their heads in respect. Long explained he'd been warming the Supreme Commander's chair while Lin was gone, but he was ready to hand it back and retire. Lin raised an eyebrow. "You really want to retire this early? You just made Major General, didn't you?" Long let out a heavy sigh. "Man, the command center is barely recognizable. The Royals have their claws sunk into every single post now." He was just relieved Lin was back. Finally, a breath of fresh air in this chaotic madhouse. Lin, however, kept his thoughts to himself, suspecting the royal infestation would only get worse. Catching the dark look on his friend's face, Long raised an eyebrow. "You seriously think they'd go that far?" "Isn't that exactly why you called me?" the protagonist shot back. Long laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Guilty." "Honestly, I was so hyped you were alive, the crisis kind of slipped my mind." He grabbed a stack of classified folders and slid them across the table to the Supreme Commander. "Read 'em and weep," Long said. "That's the breakdown of every military roster change since the day you were taken out." The files were also packed with intel on the border war. Lin scanned the documents, his expression unreadable. Well, with the military under royal lockdown, nothing catastrophic should times happen, right? And that, Long snapped, pointing a finger, is exactly why we're screwed. These kings are used to people kissing the ground they walk on. They wouldn't know how to lead an army if their lives depended on it. The South is quiet, but the Northwest? It's a nightmare. 10 cities are getting leveled by bombardments, and we're flying blind. Total news blackout, and our runner has gone silent. Lin's voice dropped. Was White Tiger stationed in the Northwest when those 10 cities fell? Long nodded grimly. Yeah, and we haven't heard a peep from him in over 5 months. The protagonist cracked the seal on the Tiger's last emergency drop. The coded message was short and brutal. The Northwest has fallen. Asterisk. The Royals sold us out. Asterisk, the note implied. Asterisk. Odds of me surviving until the boss wakes up? Slim to none. Asterisk. His final request was simple. Asterisk. Don't waste tears on me if I don't make it. Asterisk. Reading that, Lin felt a surge of pure, molten rage. Losing his messenger wasn't an option. Hold on, Long frowned. The Dragon Lord runs the military department. Why is the royal family suddenly muscling in? I had the same question, Lin admitted. So I deployed a shadow to the capital to sniff around. His gut told him one thing. Chan was ready to burn the whole nation to the ground just to line his own pockets. 2 days later, the scene shifted to Jancorp. Grandpa Shin sat there stewing in regret, wondering if booting his granddaughter was a massive tactical error. Jan, busy perfecting her lipstick in a compact mirror, scoffed. Please. Lin's a total scam artist and Shin was dead weight. The old man, however, wasn't buying the act anymore. Dead weight, he thought. Since she left, every investor had run for the hills. The Yang family was broke. Jan batted her eyelashes, playing the airhead. Oh, relax. It'll all work out. Asterisk, bam, asterisk. The old man slammed his fist on the desk, furious. Work out? We're finished. Every single partner dumped us to go join Lin's camp. Desperate to deflect, Jay pointed a shaking finger at her cousin. It's all her fault. If Shin hadn't messed up the finance department, we wouldn't be in this mess. Enough. Grandpa took a deep, rattling breath. Get moving. We have a meeting with the patriarch. Before he croaked, the old boss left a sealed letter for a doomsday scenario. Grandpa was betting the farm that whatever was inside could save their skins. Later that night, the protagonist crept back home. He flicked on the switch, and the sudden light stirred his wife, who had passed out on the couch. Shin shifted, blinking sleepily. You're back? Lin gently draped his coat over her shoulders. Hey, why are you crashing out here instead of the bedroom? I was waiting up for you, she murmured. Seeing him in one piece was enough to relax her. I'll go to bed now. You should get some shut-eye too. As soon as she left, a shadow materialized on the windowsill. Report, Lin commanded. The spy handed over 3 critical updates. First up, since Shin walked, the partners cut the Yang family loose. They're hemorrhaging money and circling the drain towards total bankruptcy. Second, the Dragon Master is under house arrest. He's unhurt, but they stripped his command and handed it to some no-name rival. And third, White Tiger. Last sighting was 5 months ago on the northwest border, a hellhole called the Masterless Realm. Lin's eyes went cold. He knew that place. It's a wasteland now, the spy added. Lin nodded sharply. Got it. That tells me everything I need to know. The pieces were falling into place. A storm of chaos was brewing, both inside the borders and out. The next morning, the hero went full chef mode. The smell of a gourmet breakfast woke the house. Jay stumbled in, hair a mess, stunned to see a 5-star spread on the table. Don't get excited, Lin teased. This feast is for Rui and Shin. On cue, his wife shuffled in, rubbing her eyes like a zombie. He pulled out her chair with a grin. Rough night? That's what you get for waiting up. Shin sighed. Couldn't sleep anyway. Was stressing about job hunting. Suddenly, Lee's shrill voice cut through the vibe. About time you made yourself useful. You owe us for the 2 years you spent playing vegetable. The mother-in-law held out her hand, demanding cash. We're broke because of you. Shin slammed her fork down. Mom, stop it! That's garbage and you know it! But the old woman wasn't done. She kept spewing venom, calling Lin every name in the book. Mortified, Shin looked at her husband. I'm so sorry. You know, she's just obsessed with money. Lin just laughed it off. Hey, she's got a point. I do need to bring home the bacon. Then, his tone shifted. Speaking of family history, how exactly did your dad die? Car crash, Shin said, looking confused. Lin turned to Yang, pressing for more, but she shrugged. I don't know the details. I bet the Jans set him up, she whispered. Great-grandpa wanted him to inherit the empire, not them. The relatives went ballistic. When he died, they cut us off completely. 0 inheritance. Little Rui clenched his fists. We gotta take back Grandpa's treasure! Hush, kid. Grown-ups are talking, Chang snapped. But Rui fished a necklace out of his pocket. Grandpa gave me this. Said to keep it safe for the right time. Lin grabbed the pendant, his eyes widening. He knew exactly what he was holding. That wasn't jewelry, it was crafted from pure evolutionary stones. Shin squinted at the pile, recognizing that necklace from her dad's office ages ago. She knew straight away that wasn't just some pretty trinket. The royal bloodline had crazy powers, but leveling them up required a secret technique. Suddenly, a beam of blue light shot out of the necklace and wrapped around Lin's hand. Rui looked totally hypnotized and snatched the stone right out of her dad's grip before anyone could react. The blue glow swallowed the kid whole, and her parents freaked out. The light dove straight into her stomach and vanished. She dropped to the floor but popped back up a second later, saying she felt something weird inside her tummy. Shin was panicking, demanding answers. Lin explained that he'd powered up the evolution stone, but the thing had a mind of its own. It chose Rui. Her dormant bloodline powers were probably waking up. There was no turning back now. He dialed Dr. Lee, who picked up instantly, sensing trouble. But before Lin could get a word out, the phone slipped from his fingers and just hovered in midair. Suddenly, all the silverware in the room started floating like it was caught in a magnetic field. Rui's new powers were going haywire. While the main house was turning into a zero-gravity zone, Jay was just chilling on the beach, minding her own business. Her vacation vibe died fast when screams erupted from the house. Lin sprinted out, carrying his daughter, with Shin right behind him, yelling at her sister to run for cover. Yang tried to process the madness, but her sister was already gone. Then, a massive shadow blotted out the sun. Jang looked up and froze solid. A colossal wave was looming right over them. It crashed down, knocking the girls off their feet. Shin screamed at her sister to move, but Jang was paralyzed, convinced an underwater army was attacking. Wasting no time, Shin grabbed whoever she could and bolted. Later on, Dr. Lee met up with the hero. He asked if he was 100% sure about suppressing the royal bloodline. Lin explained that Rui had awakened electromagnetic abilities, stuff so rare it was basically a royal myth. He wasn't gambling with his daughter's life. The plan had to happen. He asked if the 16 kilometers of coastline were clear. Once confirmed, Lin told everyone to get ready. They hopped on a boat and set up. Dr. Lee started the acupuncture on Lin, warning him that there were 9 seal levels to unlock, starting from the bottom. The hero braced himself, knowing exactly how to handle the energy spike after every needle. When Lee hit specific meridians and pulled something from Lin's back, the guy screamed in agony. He gritted his teeth and forced himself to hold on. 5 layers down. Lee kept going with the torture session. The hero still had 4 more levels to go. Rui watched with tears in her eyes, terrified seeing her dad in that much pain, but they couldn't stop yet. As night fell and the sky went dark, a pair of eyes watched the boat from the water. The creeper wasn't alone. He pulled a blade from his robes and signaled his squad to move, but suddenly he got a nasty surprise. Lin glared at the guy with pure rage. The assassin tried to radio his boss, but before he could squeak out a word, a lightning bolt slammed into him, frying him on the spot. Lin immediately turned on King, chewing her out for not watching the perimeter after she'd sworn the coast was clear. She hung her head in shame and apologized for messing up. The next day, the hero went back home to check on his wife. Shin was running a fever, so he tucked her in. A bit later, Lin told Long he had some serious business to discuss. His wife stirred, mumbling something weak. He rushed over to check on her, and the first thing she asked was where their daughter was. Lin told her to relax, explaining that Rui was with Dr. Lee. Meanwhile, in the other room, the doc was trying to get Rui to describe her symptoms. The girl thought for a second and said, "I don't know, ask my dad." Just then, Lin walked in carrying Shin and asked for a status update. Rui sprinted over and hugged her mom, super happy to see she was finally awake. The hero gently pulled his daughter away, telling her to let mom rest. Then, Lee dropped the bomb. He needed to take the girl with him. Shin immediately freaked out and demanded to know why. Lin calmly explained that Rui had unlocked the royal bloodline power and needed serious training. And nobody was better suited for the job than Dr. Lee. The doc chimed in, explaining to Shin that there was a brutal war raging in the northwest, but the royals were covering it up to keep the public clueless. He added that Rui's awakening was a total wild card, and the guy currently running the capital was a deadly enemy. Basically, Shin and the kid would be walking targets the Supreme's biggest weakness if they couldn't defend themselves. Even after hearing the danger, Shin hesitated. She didn't want her little princess going anywhere and insisted Rui stay home. Lee patiently talked her down, promising he'd only take the girl for 1 year. He swore he'd teach her everything he knew and that not a single hair on her head would be harmed. The hero left the choice up to his daughter, refusing to force her. Rui imagined the monsters her dad would have to face and was terrified he'd end up crippled again. Determined to get swole enough to protect him, she chose to go with the doc. Lee praised her guts and told them to hustle. Before leaving, Rui handed her dad a notebook, asking him to keep it safe until they met again. She admitted she felt like they hadn't hung out enough since he woke up. Lin looked heartbroken and apologized for not being around more. Wanting to rip the bandage off quickly, Rui grabbed the doctor and said she'd be back later. Shin didn't even get to say goodbye. Her daughter was already out the door. Outside, Rui vowed to herself that she would protect her parents. Back inside, Lin promised his wife that their little girl was going to be just fine. Shin was still anxious, asking if he was taking off again. Lin nodded. His Northwest squad had sent intel, but he swore he'd clean up this mess before hitting the road. Next morning at the Yan estate, Shin blinked, totally confused. Why are we even here? Lin just smirked. Trust me, it'll all make sense soon. Just then, Shin's grandfather and that cousin of hers strolled up to them. The old man demanded to know exactly what they were doing there. Lin snatched an envelope from Shin's hand and tossed it at the old guy, telling him to give it a read. It was fresh intel his squad had scraped together just this morning. As they scanned the papers, the faces of the old man and his granddaughter turned totally grim. Lin turned to Shin and dropped the bomb. Her dad's car crash wasn't actually an accident. It was a setup. And the mastermind behind the whole thing was January. The cousin screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Lin and accusing him of planting fake evidence to frame her. The furious old man snapped and backhanded his granddaughter across the face, admitting he'd been completely blind for years. Shin was stunned by the confession, while Jan tried to defend herself, yelling that she didn't murder the third uncle. She tried to justify it by saying she just wanted to send a warning that the Ginger family belonged to her and her dad. She never imagined they were dealing with two actual monsters. Finally, she added, "Your uncle just had some really rotten luck. Those beasts shredded him, so it wasn't my fault." The protagonist caught the hidden meaning in her words and figured there were other players pulling the strings behind the so-called accident. However, Shin, totally confused by the cryptic message, screamed at her cousin to spit it out and explain everything clearly. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the shadows, warning its master that Lin had already spotted them. The protagonist let out a cold laugh, noting that the Jin family might look impressive, but they were hiding rats in the walls. Like a bolt of lightning, Chin sprinted toward the source of the voice, moving so fast no human eye. The old man begged Lin not to hurt the Jin family just because he was feeling salty about the situation. The protagonist replied calmly that he just wanted to see what kind of vermin were lurking nearby. Moments later, Chin smashed into a hidden room and tackled a blue-haired guy to the ground. The intruder laughed, claiming his mission was already done and she could never stop him. He tried to bail, but a fierce brawl broke out. Despite his struggles, Ching completely owned him and dragged him back to the main hall, dumping him right at his master's feet. Realizing there was no way out, the man's body underwent a terrifying transformation, sprouting two massive horns from his forehead. Lin immediately recognized it as a glitch in the royal bloodline. Yan pointed at the creature, screaming that this was one of the monsters that murdered their third uncle. The protagonist stepped in front of Shin, shielding her while leaving the fight to Xing. The loyal subordinate summoned a glowing dagger into her hand. The mutant growled that he'd take her down and then finish off Lin. With claws engulfed in flames, he lunged at King, but she moved with surgical precision. In a flash, her dagger pierced right through his neck. The mutant collapsed, choking on his own blood. Yan watched in total disbelief, unable to process how someone could one-shot such a monstrous creature. As the enemy's body went limp, Shin spotted something on him, looted it, and handed it over to her master. Lin examined the tiny gadget and instantly recognized it as a communicator. A voice crackled through. It was Shan. On the other end, Shao asked how he knew who was listening. Lin's rage boiled over. He had spared this guy at the banquet, but his patience had officially hit zero. The elder of the J family went pale, terrified that the protagonist was about to go to war with Cho, whose family had serious clout. He begged Lin to remember that he had once been saved by the old master. Lin replied coldly that when Master Shang saved his life, he had promised to protect the Yang family for 30 years, but that contract was voided the moment they insulted his wife. The bearded elder tried to argue, claiming Jacin would inherit the family someday, so he should reconsider. Jan, absolutely furious, screamed at her grandpa that this family belonged to her and her father. Ignoring the chaos, Lin asked his wife to make the call. Without hesitation, Shin said she didn't want to go back. The grandfather was shocked by her words. After all, she had zero desire to live with these people, especially after they had kicked her out of the family. Respecting her choice, the protagonist took her hand and led her out of the house while the old man yelled for them to wait. Lin stated firmly that this wasn't unfair to Master Chang. He would personally handle the Zhou family. From this moment on, the debt between him and the Jan family was wiped clean. Outside, Old Man Jan was fuming over how the whole situation had played out, his face twisted in anger. As they walked away, Lin told his wife he'd be gone for 2 days to settle some business in the capital, leaving King in charge of her security. Shin felt bad about dumping so much work on her husband, but the subordinate reassured her that he just needed to handle something in the city. Curious, Shin asked who this person in the capital was, the one Lin kept mentioning. Lin replied that it was Shen Yan, the absolute top dog of the royal family in the capital. Shin had never heard that name, but just hearing it gave her the creeps. Lin told Shin to hop in the car and head home while he took care of the rest. A few hours later, at the Shao family estate, the patriarch was discussing the investigation. He complained that there was still zero news about Lin or the Yan family. A guy in a green hat replied that the young emperor was getting impatient. Even though the Chao family still had backing today, they'd be dropped like a bad habit if they turned out to be useless. The head of the Che family nodded, saying he understood. After all, his son had been beaten by that man. The advisor in the green hat suggested they take advantage of Lin's incomplete recovery and wipe him out in one strike. Suddenly, a massive boom echoed through the room. Lin walked in, dragging Chage by his hair. His cold gaze swept the room, looking for the boss. The man in the green hat stepped forward, demanding to know who dared to break into their home. Trembling, Chi screamed to his grandfather that this was Lin Fen. The old man burst into hysterical laughter, mocking the protagonist for walking straight into their trap. He said Lin had saved them the trouble of hunting him down. Slamming his cane on the floor, the patriarch triggered a mechanism that dropped a giant cage right over Lin. He smiled with contempt, advising Lin to hand over the Yang family and renounce his royal bloodline if he wanted to live like a dog. Failure wasn't an option unless he wanted his head served on a platter to the young emperor. Shao's dad panicked, begging the elder to hold fire since his own kid was still trapped in the kill zone. Shao screamed his lungs out for help. Finally, our hero cut him loose, flashing a chilly grin. Man, I hate being caged up with stray dogs. Last guy who tried this ended up in a morgue. Shao shrieked again, crying out for his daddy. The grandpa sneered, warning Lin to back off. He didn't give a damn about the kid. Asterisk, click. Asterisk. He hit a button on his cane, blasting the cage with high-voltage lightning. Shao got fried, his screams echoing off the walls. Lin? He just stood there, totally chill, like the lightning was a gentle breeze. Shao's dad screamed to stop, but the patriarch was ice cold. Sacrificing the boy is fine. The young master's bounty on Lin is worth way more. The hero scoffed. So, Shan is calling himself the young emperor now? That's cute. Weird how loyal you Shao folks are, considering Shan didn't even warn you that these cheap parlor tricks don't work on me. Asterisk snap. Asterisk Lin. Gripped the bars and tore the steel cage apart with his bare hands. The old man stumbled back, eyes wide. Impossible. Nobody has that kind of strength. He whistled for backup, and dozens of soldiers swarmed in. Feeling brave with the numbers, he ordered the kill. Bullets rained down but pinged harmlessly off Lin's shield. Lin blurred into motion, closing the gap and dropping the snipers with his bare hands before they could blink. Wave 2 launched high-tech arrows. Lin just snatched one out of the air like he was catching a fly. Armor-piercing rounds, the elder gloated. Designed to kill royalty, now repurposed to serve the young emperor's will. The soldiers went all out, dumping ammo and igniting the gas tanks behind Lin. Asterisk, boom. Asterisk. A massive fireball swallowed the whole area. Mansion's gone, but the threat is neutralized, the old man declared, dusting off his hands. Too bad his victory lap was about to be cut short. Lin walked out of the inferno like a ghost, not a scratch on him. One swift swing of his blade, and the elder's head went flying. The patriarch hit the floor, dead. Shao's dad, the only survivor, scrambled in a panic. Weapon number 1! Get out here now! 2 hulking beasts stomped into the room. The boss reminded them, Master Shan wants the Yan family wiped out. Fail, and you're dead too. Lin clocked them instantly, mutants. They'd been juicing on stolen royal blood fragments. They rushed him together, banking on brute force. Lin was faster. He smashed a fist into the blue monster's face, embedding it into the concrete wall. The red demon tried a sneak attack. Lin blocked it and tossed the beast aside like a cheap rag doll. Sure, the mutation made them ugly and buff, but they were nothing compared to the Supreme. Lin was curious about the science, but the clock was ticking. He pulled a firearm from his case and unloaded. Asterisk, bang, bang, asterisk. Surgical shots tore right through their defenses. Finally, the protagonist triggered a charge, blowing the room to smithereens. Meanwhile, Shao's dad sprinted to his office to dial up the big boss. Shan's face filled the giant screen. Status report. Now. Sweating bullets. The guy stammered that Lin had breached the compound and they deployed weapon number 1. The Dragon Lord narrowed his eyes, put the Elder on. He couldn't exactly admit his dad just got decapitated by the Supreme, so he lied. He's, currently engaging the target. Cut the crap, Shan snapped. I can smell the fear on you. Suddenly, a hand punched right through the guy's shoulder, frying him with voltage. Lin had finally reached the line to Shan. The Dragon Lord chuckled. Bold move, Supreme. Coming alone to the Shao family turf and trashing my toys? Expected nothing less. Lin shrugged. Those armor-piercing rounds hurt royal blood, sure. But you forgot the basics. Without the containment field, they're just glorified pebbles. Shan grit his teeth, cursing internally. Asterisk. These Shao family idiots couldn't do anything right. Asterisk. Lin tapped his temple, grinning. Hey, Shan, you need a brain to play at this level. The Dragon Lord kept his cool. The royals are my puppets now. The only reason you're still breathing is because killing a celebrity hero is messy. Tell you what, Shan added. Bow down now, and I might let you witness true supreme power. You slaughtered your own kin for a power trip, Lin shot back. You're absolutely pathetic. You're too soft, Shan sighed. Power requires sacrifice. Suddenly, a beep echoed. The Shao family had left a parting gift, a self-destruct countdown. Shan laughed. My supreme artifact is toast, and so are you. Did you really think you'd walk away from this? The mansion vanished in a blinding explosion. Miles away, Shin jolted awake in bed, heart pounding from a bad feeling. She frantically dialed her husband, but the line was dead. The number you have reached is not available. The door creaked open. A subordinate peeked in. Ma'am, did something happen? Shin rubbed her temples. I had a nightmare about Lin. The master is invincible, the guard reassured her. But if you're really worried, we can use the emergency secure line. She hesitated. If he was in the middle of a fight, a call could get him killed. No, she sighed. Don't bother him. Go get some sleep. As you wish, ma'am. The guard bowed. Shin curled back under the covers, whispering, He'll be fine. I know it. So, the very next day, they rushed Shin over to the medical center at Bin Hai. She was feeling totally wrecked the night before, so our main character swung by to grill the doctor on the situation. The doc was like, chill, she's fine. After running a few tests, it turned out to be just exhaustion, nothing a little power nap wouldn't fix to get her back to 100%. Lin shot the doctor a sharp look and asked, Is that everything? The doc hesitated, then admitted he'd actually found something weird. After running a full diagnostic, he'd picked up a strange brainwave spike while Lin was asleep. Handing over the chart, he explained that, usually, a reading like that screams mental breakdown or shock, but honestly, he figured the nightmare was just a reaction to all the recent chaos. He promised to handle it on the down low and double-check the results later. Meanwhile, a massive commotion was brewing outside the building. The mob was screaming, demanding the Chinese head of state come out and talk. Lin stared out the window, his expression grim as he watched the riot unfold. Suddenly, Qing burst into the infirmary, looking frantic. The Northwest situation is a total disaster. The royal family has lost control, and battle footage is blowing up all over the internet. That explained why the crowd outside was losing their minds. Lin wondered if the Western or Northern military units were making a move yet. His subordinate chimed in. Our intel says both military branches just busted a ring of spies. Shenyang was drowning in work, and thanks to that slip-up, the contract got shredded. Now, the ugly truth was out there for all of China to see. Qin added, there are online petitions launching worldwide. Everyone is demanding the general take over as commander. She looked at him, waiting. What's the plan, boss? Lin got it instantly. The people wanted the Vanai City military commander gone because of his shady ties to the royal family. Now the crowd was practically begging Lin to take the reins. Weighing his options, he made the call. King, keep this area locked down while I'm gone. Cut to the army office. Long was ready to tear someone's head off for barging in without knocking until he realized it was Lin. He instantly chilled out. Napping? Lin scoffed. The Northwest is burning, and you're catching Z's? The soldiers snapped to attention as Lin explained, I'm not here to bark orders. I'm here to recruit you. We're heading northwest. Long hesitated. We can't launch an expedition without a commanding officer. Lin shook his head. Who said anything about an expedition? I just need you to ride shotgun. Totally out of the loop, the soldier looked stunned when Lin dropped the bomb that the whole mess had already leaked online. Pumping himself up, Long grinned. Just give me a gun. I'll pick those invaders off one by one. He agreed to follow his old master into hell to win the battle and save the country. Minutes later, a chopper touched down on the army rooftop. Hang was waiting there, ready for Lin's final orders before takeoff. Lin tossed him the emblem of his private force, the Agia army. Binhai City is your problem now. Don't mess it up. He warned, only use that to provoke the Black Armor army if you have absolutely no other choice. Huang smirked, assuring his master, don't worry, I've got the city under control. Clutching the badge, he pulled a pocket watch from his suit and handed it to Lin. Inside was a picture of Shin. She'd made him promise to deliver it. Lin thanked him, swearing he'd come back in one piece for her. Long rolled his eyes, trying to snap his friend out of it. Love kills your fighting spirit, man. Let's move before you get soft. They were just about to lift off when a voice screamed, wait! Lin blinked, surprised. How the heck did you get up here? The blue-haired man smirked. There isn't a spot in China I can't reach. Lin looked pleased to see Feng, while Long stood there, jaw dropped, staring at the Dragon Master. Lin nodded. With him on the squad, our odds of winning just skyrocketed. The trio jumped aboard the aircraft and left Binhai City in the dust. Mid-flight, Feng dropped some history. The Dragon Master title, originally given to commoners, no royal blood allowed. It was a way to keep the military departments in check and stop the royal family from getting too power-hungry. But I got too buried in my research, Feng admitted. I didn't even notice Shan had sent hitmen to take me out. They snatched me, locked me up in Shenyan's place, and forced me to study how to fuse royal bloodlines with their descendants. Lin asked the big question. Did it work? Feng didn't beat around the bush. At first, yeah, the fusion was a success. Shenyan used the corpses of countless kings to suppress the bloodline backlash. I only managed to bail because the ritual stalled Shan's plans long enough for me to slip away. Well, glad you're safe now, Lin said. The pilot cut in over the comms, approaching Yingyao City, 50 miles out. The soldiers stood up and slid the door open, wind whipping in. Before they dived, Lin warned them, just so you know, don't expect any backup on this one. We're on our own. You guys sure about this? Long and Feng yelled their confirmation. Born ready! Together, the three of them leaped from the chopper. A while later, the squad touched down in Yingyao, deep in the Northwest Territories. Long noticed immediately that their comms were dead and the HUD stats were glitching out. The map was blank. He tried flagging down a local, flashing his badge. Hey, China Task Force, we need intel. The guy slammed the door right in his face. Long sighed. Okay, so we're definitely not welcome here. Forget him. We'll find our own answers, Lin said. Check the map. How far to the stronghold? Long squinted at the horizon. Past those sand dunes, we've still got about 30 kilometers to hike. While they plotted their route, a kid peeked out from behind some rocks. Lin spotted him, walked over, and held out a chocolate bar. Trade you for some info? You know where the headquarters is? The kid snatched the candy without hesitation. Are you guys really going to fight the bandits? When Lin nodded, the kid signaled them to follow. This way. As they walked, they pieced together that royal family infiltrators had already breached the city. Twirling a key around his finger, the boy explained, Nobody here's going to help you, soldiers. They're too scared. My dad's been different since my brother died. They killed all the brave men in town. That's why nobody talks anymore. But then the kid dropped a serious warning. I'm helping you guys exactly once. After that, you're on your own. He turned a key, and boom, a secret door popped open, revealing a hidden bunker. Inside, it was a total mess. The squad found a bunch of Chinese soldiers who were in bad shape, covered in scars, and looking rough. Puffing out his chest, the kid bragged that he and his dad saved these guys last year. The soldiers, though? They were terrified, having no clue if Lin's crew was there to rescue them or finish them off. Lin's ears perked up. He noticed their accents were a dead ringer for the local city dialect. He lowered his weapon, easing the tension. Relax, he told them. I'm not here to make you die for some royal family. I just want you to defend your own turf. Meanwhile, the Sandwolves, a nasty group of intruders, got wind that more Chinese troops had touched down. Their leader started popping shots at the sky, screaming for the villagers to cough up the soldiers. He was waving around a cash reward, but the streets stayed empty. Nobody was dumb enough to step outside. Remember that villager who slammed the door in Long's face earlier? Now he was cowering inside his house while the goons tried to batter his door down. Karma, right? The boss, some dude with a neck tattoo, shouted, "Talk or we torch the whole village!" Little did he know, a sniper had already set up a long-range rifle and had him dialed in. The Sandwolves had zero clue they were already walking dead men. Thinking they ran the place, they got ready to light the fires to force people out. Then, Thwip, one of the bandits, caught a bullet right in the head and dropped like a sack of potatoes. His buddies spun around, frantic to find the shooter. Lin stepped out of the shadows like a ghost and took another one down instantly. The gang was totally shook by how strong and precise this guy was. The takedown was so silent that the rest of the bandits kept yelling at the villagers, completely oblivious to the Grim Reaper standing right behind them. Lin tossed a pebble cling just to get one guy's attention. "Wow," he smirked. "Your situational awareness is actual garbage." The thug whirled around, spraying bullets everywhere like a maniac, but Lin was too fast and closed the gap with zero effort. "Toy guns won't save you," Lin said, his voice ice cold. The intruder froze, realizing too late that he was standing face to face with the Supremo himself. Our protagonist slammed him to the dirt, muzzle pressed against his skull. "Do yourself a favor," he whispered. "Pay better attention in your next life." One shot, done. Another goon saw it and tried to play ninja, sneaking up on Lin, but he got snatched up immediately. Shaking like a leaf, the guy hit his knees, begging for mercy. Lin just stared at him. "Did you show any mercy to the people living here?" The bandit went silent. And just like that, he was deleted too. The villager, peeking through a crack in his door, watched the whole brutal show unfold. Lin glanced at the door. "Stay inside until the trash is taken out." The man nodded, trembling. Are you really here to save us?" "Yeah," Lin replied. But the party wasn't over. Minutes later, heavy reinforcements from the Sandwolf squad rolled up to the house. The main character hopped onto a roof to get a bird's eye view. Timing it perfectly, he dove down, dual-wielding pistols like an action movie star, dropping bodies left and right while the survivors scrambled. From his window, the old man was floored. He was watching a one-man army take on a whole mob. Lin switched to hand-to-hand combat, delivering hits that shattered bones. The villager got a flashback. He had only seen raw power like that once before. It reminded him of the man who led the Sandwolves. The enemy commander lost it when he saw his squad terrified of a single Chinese soldier. "You pathetic losers," he screamed. But then, the eerie silence from his own men made the blood drain from his face. Too late. Lin was already standing right behind him, having quietly dispatched the bodyguard next to him. The leader panicked and raised his rifle, but Lin crushed the metal barrel with his bare hand like it was Play-Doh. Two grunt soldiers saw this and decided, nope, running for their lives. The rest of the team followed suit, sprinting away, but Lin's crew was waiting on the mountain ridge, picking them off with sniper fire as they ran. Desperate and cornered, the enemy boss spat out, "Coward! You point a gun at an armed man?" Lin gave him a cold stare. "Oh, so it's honorable when you point guns at unarmed families in this country? There's no glory in crushing innocent people into misery just to steal a few inches of dirt." The boss smirked, acting cocky. "Fair point. Shoot me if you want, but I'm the only one who knows the way to headquarters. I could help you." Then, snap. Off came the cap. Surprise twist. The boss was actually a woman. Their chat got interrupted by Long, who ran up reporting, "Supreme, we wiped out the mercenaries escaping from point A." He froze mid-sentence when he saw the woman talking to Lin. She laughed, totally unbothered. "Ugh, my head hurts just looking at you three. The Trash Supremo, the Puppet Dragon Master, and his little lapdog Long." She clearly did her homework on them. Long snapped, leveling his pistol at her face. "How dare you insult the Dragon Master and the Supremo?" The woman tried to cut a deal to save her skin. Here's the trade. I give you the HQ location, you let me walk. Lynn wasn't having it. I don't make deals with randoms. She kept acting tough, trying to bluff her way out of it. Losing patience, Lynn grabbed her by the throat and lifted her straight off the ground. Choking and dangling, she quickly decided to cooperate. Okay, she wheezed. I can take you to Eaglehead Castle. He dropped her, and she hit the dirt, gasping for air. I heard the Supremo was back, she muttered, terrified now. But I never imagined he was this strong. She realized she was in serious trouble. Lynn started calling the shots. Long got stuck with babysitting duty, keeping an eye on the girl, while Feng was tasked with rallying the troops over at Eagle Point. Their mission? Turn this place into an impenetrable fortress. Feng was down with the plan and immediately roped in that injured commander from earlier to whip the soldiers into shape. Later that day, the girl was trudging along with her hands tied, spilling the beans as they walked. She explained that the Sandwolf squad does a sweep twice a day, and if the first team doesn't check in, they send in the cavalry. The protagonist cut her off, asking how far this Eaglehead Castle actually was. She gave a vague answer about it being just over a few more sand dunes. Feng checked the map and called her bluff immediately. She was straight up lying. They were moving in the totally opposite direction, right toward the edge of the desert. Long whipped out his weapon, warning her to cut the crap because his patience was wearing thin. The merc played the victim card, swearing she was only trying to stop Lynn from fighting 10,000 guys solo and that she just wanted to help. Before Lynn could even clap back, a yellow car launched over the dunes, slamming down in front of them and spraying sand everywhere. The main character asked who the guests were. She admitted they were the Vulture Squad, the nastiest crew in the Eaglehead group, notorious for taking out any Chinese people on sight. The bad guys hopped out, and their bald leader called dibs on the girl, telling his minions they could do whatever they wanted with the rest. Lin snatched a knife from his buddy and, in a blur of motion, wiped out the entire Vulture Squad before they could blink. The girl just froze, jaw on the floor, watching the strongest battalion get deleted in a single move. The protagonist snapped her back to reality as he tossed the dagger back to his teammate. Voice dropping to a serious register, he gave the woman one final shot to spill the truth. She finally caved, admitting she could lead the way, but warned them that Eaglehead Castle was a fortress easy to defend, nightmare to attack. It was rigged with 24-hour sensors and battlefield surveillance radar. Her big worry now was whether the Sandwolves had already clocked their position. Feng smirked, saying he'd already taken care of it. Apparently, hacking the repeater and hijacking the video feed was child's play for him. Long gave his partner props for the quick thinking, while Lin told everyone to pile into the car. It was time to roll. Minutes later, the stolen vehicle was speeding toward the castle. The merc warned they were getting close, just as a Vulture sniper spotted them in his scope. The shooter hesitated, recognizing his buddy's car, but a closer look revealed the driver definitely wasn't his bald boss. Lin had already clocked the hidden lookouts. Waiting for the perfect second, he gave Long the green light to open fire. The soldier climbed onto the roof, picking off Vulture snipers one by one. Bodies tumbled down the dunes, and some unfortunately met the bumper of the speeding car. The merc panicked, saying they were sitting ducks at this rate. Lin just replied coldly that he never said anything about being stealthy. Sentries rushed over at the noise, only to freak out as Lin's car literally flew over their heads, leaving them completely hopeless. Soldiers tried to hit the intruder alarm, but Long was faster, putting a bullet straight into the nearby gas drums. A massive chain of explosions ripped through the area immediately after. The merc screamed that the castle was full of Chinese hostages and Long might accidentally blow them up if he kept playing cowboy like this. The protagonist completely ignored her drama, asking Feng how long until the enemy defense system was toast. The Dragon Master checked his gear and confirmed they were almost there. Suddenly, an aircraft swooped in from above, chasing their car down. The merc yelled that it was the Sandwolf armed recon plane and they needed an escape route fast. Lin shouted that the direction was up to Long. He bailed out while his partner took the wheel. The pilots were stunned when the protagonist jumped so high he appeared right outside their cockpit window. A Vulcan cannon underneath spun up to fire, but Lin just ripped the entire gun off with his bare hand. Another explosion lit up the sky. Long laughed, saying only the boss could pull off something that crazy. The protagonist landed back in the car and told Long to keep up. Meanwhile, inside Eaglehead Castle, the soldiers knew invaders were coming and lined up for a fight. But the gate crumbled under a blast from his ultimate move. The protagonist's eyes glowed crimson as his power surged, and the stolen car smashed through the debris to get inside. A whole wave of Vulture Squad soldiers got eliminated instantly. Lin was leaking so much power that the ground actually started cracking beneath him. Suddenly, a hole blasted through the stone wall. The head of Eaglehead Castle watched with a smirk, asking who this intruder was. Lin saw a tank rolling up, barrel pointed right at him. The castle troops cheered wildly for Boss Ding's grand entrance. The tank fired a shell at point-blank range. The hero dodged it effortlessly and actually kicked the projectile back toward the soldiers. The blast took out more goons, infuriating the boss, who screamed at Lin not to look down on him. He tried to flatten the hero with the tank tracks but failed. Lin caught the massive vehicle with his hands and sent a high-voltage shock through the metal. Ding felt the overwhelming chi radiating from Lin but stayed cocky. He fired another shell straight at the hero. Unbelievably, Lin caught the live round with his bare hand, stopping it right inside the barrel. Another explosion went off, but the protagonist stood there without a scratch. He called Ding a cunning rat before storming into the castle. Inside, he found the hostage holding cell. A woman hugged her son tight, asking if he was sent by China to rescue them. Lin confirmed it and told the hostages to follow him. Meanwhile, outside, the castle soldiers were clashing with the protagonist's team. Long was tearing through opponents with excitement, then hopped out of the car, dragging the merc along. Suddenly, someone yelled, "Sister Jibbin!" The hostage, freed by the protagonist, ran over and hugged the girl, saying he thought she was dead. The mercenary smiled with pure joy, realizing he was safe and sound. The little kid glares at Long, demanding to know why his big sis is trussed up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Our MC just shrugs it off. Simple. Pretty face, demon heart. She's a cold-blooded killer. The kid screams, "You're full of it." He swears the hostages would have been toast if it wasn't for Sister Jiben saving their skins. He rushes to untie her himself, begging her to tell everyone she's one of the good guys. Right on cue, the other hostages chime in, backing the kid's story 100%. They explain they were just tourists trying to cross the northwest border, but the war zone turned their road trip into a nightmare. Turns out, Yibing was their guardian angel. Hearing that, the main character decides to cut her some slack and lets her go. The mercenary dusts herself off, swearing she's never hurt a single citizen. Then comes the bombshell. She's actually an undercover agent embedded in the Sandwolf squad, leaking intel back to the army. During her deep cover-up, she found out the big three, Sandwolves, Ancient Snake, and Brown Bear, are at each other's throats. Smart move? Tactical retreat. Zhou Bing suggests it, but she already knows Lin isn't the type to back down. Spoiler alert, she was right. Lin orders Long to escort the civilians back to the city. The soldier hesitates, worried about leaving him, but the MC is dead set on charging forward to reclaim their homeland. Long lets out a loud laugh, declaring he's riding shotgun no matter what. Jibing jumps in too, insisting she wants to take back the territory even more than they do. She points out that without a local guide, finding the Ancient Snake's hideout is basically impossible. At first, the MC pushes back, arguing someone needs to stay and protect the civilians, but Long and Yevon both make pretty solid cases for coming along. Lin finally caves, deciding the best play is to stock up on supplies so everyone can move out together. With the immediate fires put out, the MC's thoughts drift to his wife, hoping she's safe. Cut to Axon's estate. Xing is practically begging the MC's wife to take a nap since she hasn't slept in 24 hours. Shin stays silent. The subordinate tries a guilt trip, saying the Supreme would be pretty ticked off if he knew she was running herself ragged over the new company. Shin just replies that she wants to serve the country, same as everyone else. Her intel shows that after a partner split from the Yan family, they launched a startup strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the Mei family. It might not seem like national security stuff, but Shin is convinced Vinhai City is about to spiral into total chaos. Her gaze drifts to a framed family photo. Lin and Ruiz are the only things keeping her grounded. Touched by the moment, the subordinate silently vows to help the boss's wife hold the fort in Binhai City. Night falls fast. Back at camp, the MC lies down, staring at his wife's picture inside his pocket watch. He kisses the image, promising he'll be home before she knows it. Morning hits, and the hostages finish packing the last of the gear. Luckily, they've got enough food and muscle to make the trek on their own. The old man thanks the MC profusely, promising the group will stay safe until they reach Eagle City. Lin appreciates the sentiment. A few hours later, the squad arrives at the most chaotic city in the northwest. The invaders have turned the place into a total dump. Jobing says they have no choice but to push on. Long turns to ask the boss for orders, only to realize the MC is already way ahead of them. He thinks about chasing after him, but notices Jiben and Feng frozen stiff, staring at the map like they've seen a ghost. They've just realized they're in no man's land. "What's the big deal?" Long asks. Javen explains it's an unclaimed zone and easily the most dangerous spot in the northwest because superpowers are completely nulled here. Right on cue, the MC's flight spell glitches out and he starts plummeting. Long yells, "Cool move!" but Jing snaps back that they're in serious trouble. Lin continues his freefall. Meanwhile, some girl is enjoying a luxurious soak in a rooftop pool. It's all Zen vibes until smash! The glass ceiling shatters and Lin splashes right into the water in front of her. Her guard rushes in to check the commotion. The MC is still trying to figure out why his mana bar just hit 0. Next thing he knows, there's a gun barrel pressed against his skull. The guard doesn't recognize him, but the girl clocks him as the Supreme instantly, wondering how he bypassed their defenses. Intrigued, she wraps her arms around him from behind, asking if he's up for being her boy toy. The MC shuts it down fast. "I'm married." She yells at him not to play hard to get. Determined to seal the deal, her hand wanders dangerously low. In a flash, Lin crushes her wrist in his grip, warning that he won't hesitate to end her. The guard asks for permission to fire. The MC loses patience and crumples the guy's gun like a soda can with his bare hand. Now the woman is really interested, no magic, yet he still has insane physical stats. The muscle-bound guard throws a haymaker, creating a cloud of dust that sends everyone scrambling. The guard's ego is bruised because he can't beat the guy, so he awkwardly suggests they just tie him up and sell him off. The girl is furious at his stupidity. How exactly do you plan to tie him up if you can't even land a hit? She decides they need a strategy to leverage the South Supreme's protection. As the dust lingers, she orders her lackey to fetch her something to wear. That's when our MC bursts through the smoke, ready to brawl. But the guard frantically throws his hands up, yelling at him to hold his horses. "My master is getting dressed. It's bad manners to attack a lady during a wardrobe change." Too late, she's already robed up. She declares she's recruiting the MC and asks what he thinks. He bluntly replies he's actually here to wipe out the Sandwolves, which includes her. But the woman just smirks, saying she's totally fine with those terms. Flaunting her curves, she claims she has something he desperately needs. Or maybe she's bluffing. Our MC starts to get suspicious. Does this woman know who he really is? Is she trying to blackmail him? The woman explains that a Supreme like him must have sensed the weird magnetic field interfering with his special abilities. She explains that Supreme is going to hit a wall without her powers, but the main character waves it off like it's nothing. She keeps rambling, though, mentioning some ancient cryptic seal deep in the Earth's core that's tied to the magnetic field. If he breaks that seal, his powers get a free pass. But to find the spot, he has to trust her completely. She asks if he's game. Sensing the venom in her tone, he demands to know her real angle. Suddenly, someone crashes the party. A guy levels a pistol at them, asking if he's the shooter from earlier. Turns out, the woman soldier got snatched up and nobody even clocked it. The man calls our protagonist boss and guesses the gunfire drew a crowd. He asks for a head count and which tribe they hail from. The guy identifies them as the Desert Wolves. Our hero decides it's time to bounce. The stunner with the gravity-defying figure suggests they team up since their goals align. The gunman blushes hard, his brain clearly just went on vacation. The vibes are definitely flirtatious, but then the girl whips out a weapon from behind her back, warning them not to get sloppy. Of course, our main guy doesn't even flinch. In his book, women are already walking hazards. So right now, he's just looking at a lethal weapon holding. Well, more lethal weapons. While they chat outside, a squad armed with high-grade AK-47s is closing in. The woman tells her friend to get into character, and suddenly, the whole area is flooded. The men scramble toward the back door to take cover. Meanwhile, the invaders barge in and spot two gorgeous women in perfect outfits. The seductive atmosphere instantly puts them in a trance. One woman asks if they want to join the fun. The guys start shedding their gear, thinking she means times that times kind of fun. They lunge for the girls, but right then, the white-haired one ducks and shoves her friend underwater. That's the signal the hidden soldiers open fire, wiping out every guy who thought he was about to get lucky. Total bait and switch. The two sirens underwater were safe and sound. And once again, what a view. They surface, though it's a shame that smoke keeps blocking the best parts of the scenery. And yeah, she's still in the way. They don't even know each other. The woman introduces herself as Vincy and asks the white-haired girl for her name. She replies that she's Julie, leader of the Ancient Snakes. Vincy shoots her a skeptical look. What exactly does leader mean in this context? The trust levels are at 0. That's when our protagonist walks up and says they're good to go. A guy in the back asks if they can at least help haul the bodies. Pink-haired guy cheers, calling the victory absolutely refreshing. The other guy, a total suck-up, seizes the moment to praise his mistress for her hard work. But this cringy display doesn't faze our hero at all. He's just wondering what the snake leader is actually after. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a new location. The woman is thanking the man for everything. Without his assist, things would have gone sideways. The man insists she's being too modest. He was just doing his job. By the way, he hands over a list of members from the Binhai Political and Business Alliance. Scanning the papers, the blonde notices a lot of names, heavy hitters, and political movements. She asks why they're all from up-and-coming factions. The man explains she doesn't have the clout yet to sit at the big table with the established police and business alliances. She agrees and expresses her gratitude. Without the help of many people, especially the Wong family, she never would have reached her current spot, let alone become president. She thinks for a second and decides to roll with his suggestion. Then she proposes they link up with the emerging forces too. The man looks surprised by her guts. She continues, mentioning data on a warped magnetic field that drains bloodline energy, exactly what Shenyan and his ritual are hunting for. The info makes the man squirm. He mentions they caught a traitor in the armies studying the meteorite, but his tone flips in a heartbeat. He says it just proves how valuable that meteorite really is. The girl agrees and tells him to use the lab as a front to reel in more investment. She also tells him to build a new team and expand operations once the Northwest is stable. They shake on it and move to other topics. Once again, the man praises her for making a stellar choice. Another woman chimes in to congratulate Mrs. Yang. She smiles, deep in thought, remembering an old saying, "The husband handles the outside world. The wife manages the home." She wonders if she's nailing her role. Later that night, at the Binhai banquet hall, everyone is in party mode. A man calls for attention to give a toast, announcing the arrival of President Yang Shihui. She walks in wearing a stunning dress that hugs every curve, grabs the mic, and thanks everyone for their support. On behalf of the group, she offers her congratulations. The party rolls on with chatting and mingling. Meanwhile, the girl in the white cloak stays quiet, lost in her own head. She makes a silent vow to protect everyone, no matter the cost. Then we cut back to our protagonist crew. They're surrounded by rubble. The guy with the braids is getting patched up. He's hurt. The girl teases that for a tough-looking guy, he's super sensitive to pain. Acting like a big baby, he says he didn't expect the grass there to be venomous. The other girl is over it. She just asked him to clear the area, and somehow he managed to get cut and poisoned by lawn trimmings. It's ridiculous. The man apologizes, but he's clearly distracted because he's currently checking out an incredible view. Too bad that annoying white smoke is blocking the line of sight again, but not for long. The smoke clears. The woman asks where the exit is. She'd be a huge help since she knows the lay of the land, but man, the vibe between them is icy. She basically told the other woman to get lost and find her own way out. While they bickered over petty nonsense, the main character just stood there, staring silently at the absolute circus unfolding in front of him. Frustrated, the white-haired lady barked at her guards to rough the girl up, but one guy hesitated. He was having a major moral crisis about it. There was no way he was laying a finger on skin that flawless. His boss, obviously, lost her mind. Imagine throwing away your loyalty just because someone is hot. Meanwhile, the girl who was supposed to be the punching bag here just kept giggling. She found the whole drama absolutely hysterical. It really was a comedy show, watching that woman try to boss around such clumsy idiots. Pinky walked over, curious, and asked if she was cracking up at something specific. They shared a look, and yeah, it was comedy gold. The woman ranted that being ugly is one thing, but being ugly and disloyal? That is a total deal breaker. The guy tried to plead his case, claiming that sure, he might be an ugly traitor, but at least he is humble, so that has to count for something. Finally, our hero snapped. He was done with the clown show. He told them to knock it off and get their heads in the game. They had a mission to focus on. Petty drama wasn't even worth their time. That alpha command style totally impressed the girl. She complimented his leadership and asked what his next move was. The protagonist's buddy chimed in, noting how terrifyingly strong he was. Supreme Link really lived up to the hype, though the guy clearly had zero chill. Back in the rear, the girl was just sulking about his attitude, thinking about how humans are ridiculously complicated and annoying. A random bird soared overhead, irrelevant to us, but scenic as the squad pulled up in their car. Apparently, they were creeping up on the ancient Snake Clan's turf. Pinky raised his gun, twitching. He said that bird circling above was giving him the creeps. He wanted to shoot it down for a snack, but his partner tried to be the voice of reason, warning him not to eat random sky trash. What if it was diseased? Logic didn't stop him, though. Bang! He nailed the vulture. A single drop of blood landed on his pink hair, but weirdly, the bird kept flying. He wondered if he missed, but knew his aim was true. Squinting, he realized he did hit something, just not the bird itself. He had actually shot a hand that the vulture was clutching. Undeterred, he vowed to bring it down for real this time and locked on, but someone cut him off. The annoyed girl started channeling her powers, ready to blast it, but once again, that annoying white smoke ruined the moment for everyone. She was seconds away from striking when a deafening boom stunned the group. The bird plummeted from the sky, landing with a thud right at their feet. And the sharpshooter? Our protagonist, naturally. One perfect shot. Now, were they going to investigate that weird thing in the bird's beak? The woman watching felt a chill. Something was definitely off. Occurrences like this were practically unheard of in the ancient Snake Lands. The hero walked over, quipping that the locals had a bizarre way of welcoming guests. He pointed down and asked, "What exactly is it carrying?" "That's the twin snake scepter," she explained. It was a sacred relic supposed to control beasts, but clearly, the vulture didn't get the memo. But our main guy couldn't care less about the bird. He was laser focused on the other item, a severed human arm. Why was a scavenger carrying that? The guy with glasses stepped in to run a quick forensic check. "Blood is still fresh," he noted, implying the owner might still be kicking, or at least hadn't been dead for long. Judging by the skin's tone and texture, the arm likely belonged to an ancient snake tribesman. The woman gasped, caught off guard. She hadn't realized it was one of her own people. Just then, a gust of wind blew from the direction of the village, making her wonder if the enemy had already launched an assault. Cut to a new scene, the central gymnasium in Binhai City. Someone was studying a tactical map showing family positions across the east, west, and north. With the war expanding, spies could be hiding in plain sight. They had to move fast before the main army pushed forward. There was a real fear that scouts, or worse, soldiers had already infiltrated Binhai. The woman shouted out, asking if the Black Armor Army was ready to defend Supreme Leah's family with their lives. The soldiers paused for a beat before roaring back a unison, "Yes!" She told them she was proud of their fire. Then, a guy with an eye patch ran up with urgent news. He reported that the Blue Dragon was already stationing special forces across the 8 main streets of Binhai. She snapped at him, asking if he was an idiot for screaming classified intel like that. But since the cat was out of the bag, she demanded he point them out on the map. The guy scratched his shoulder awkwardly. Right on it, he stammered. He started to say the Blue Dragon was where he thought, but realized he had totally blanked on the location. After racking his brain, he pointed at Hong Long Street, then changed his mind. Wait, maybe it is the Lufeng Clinic? Qing went on high alert. Lufeng Clinic was where Ru and Dr. Li were stationed. Taking no chances, she decided to sweep every spot with weird activity and ordered the officer to tag along. Her subordinate had a sinking feeling, suspecting the enemy already knew she would place special operatives to watch downtown Binhai. If she was right, the bad guys were already one step ahead of the game. As they marched through the streets, Qing asked where his planted agents were. He pointed to a corner. Keeping the pace, the subordinate asked if the officer drove or came on foot. Azur just said she would find out when they got there, completely clueless that a traitor was walking right inside the Black Armor army ranks. That officer isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but even he knows Asur is the only suspect. The guy used to get beat up for stealing lunch money years ago. Joining the Black Armor army didn't fix his greed dudes a bottomless pit. Qin is itching to take him out right now, but Azur's boss makes him hesitate. She decides to play the waiting game and lure him into her turf. It doesn't take long before Qin links up with the Spec Ops team the officer planted. Suddenly, he snaps, taking down two guys before they can blink. One of the suspects yells that Sir played them. That's when the guy hijacks his own gear, mashes a button, and announces it's showtime. King's got cars boxing her in from every angle. She triggers her spy trampoline, launches skyward, and sneers. Seriously? You call this budget ambush a trap? Her main target is the traitor, but his buddies are flooring it, trying to turn her into roadkill. Qin goes full Hulk mode, punting cars out of the way to get to the rat, but her kick gets stuffed. The soldier grins, asking if she forgot their squad armor got a major durability patch. Azur mocks her, says she picked the wrong parking lot to die in. Engines roar as the goon squad revs up for round 2. The grunt is celebrating way too early. A split second later, he and his crew freeze, locked down by some invisible, supernatural grip. Even King starts floating. It's Rui tapping into that royal bloodline magic. The subordinate is practically glowing, realizing the little princess brought the heavy artillery. Big mistake dragging King to a lot right next to the clinic. That's where the protagonist's daughter was chilling. Doctor, Lee flashes a thumbs up, praising the kid's skills. Rue yells out that she missed King. The sub gently pats the little princess's cheek, telling her she was absolutely legendary. The doc chuckles. Those traitors never accounted for a superpowered toddler. Rue puffs up, saying she tried her best to be tough and protect the fam. Right on cue, the MC's wife sprints over, beaming. Turns out Shin got a psychic ping the second Rue flared her powers. Big group hug. Mom instantly goes into interrogation mode. Did Rue eat her veggies? Did she listen to Master Li? The guy admits Rui listened. Mostly. Qing reads the room and pivots, congratulating the wife on crushing her recent political and business merger. Shin admits she needed to vent about that. Her smile fades. You can tell things aren't exactly sunshine and rainbows behind the scenes. She confesses it's way harder than she thought, but she's ready to bulldoze any wall for her family. Rue picks up on the vibe and immediately asks, "Where's Papa?" Shin promises a reunion soon. She walks off feeling a bit hollow. She never expected a snake inside the Black Armor ranks. Still, she's locked in on protecting the protagonist's family until he gets back. Later, they drag a bound Azur into the office for a little chat. Chin's squad presses him for truth. The guy shrugs it off, says he's got no family, no friends. Threatening to kill him? That's not a threat, it's a favor. She slides the blade against his throat. Cool. If you don't want to talk, that's fine by me. She rips the hidden controller right out of his mouth, crushes it, and fishes out a data card. Bingo. Intel on who ordered Sir to flip on the army. The officer finally spills. Says the only player big enough to rival Qin is the White Tiger. The subordinate shakes his head. No way this low-level traitor is a direct envoy of the Tiger. The guy just mutters that the real envoy is out in the northwest. Meanwhile, the camera cuts to the protagonist's crew. They're rolling up on a snake tribe settlement. They knock on a villager's door loud. Suddenly, a weapon drops from the frame just from the force of the knock. Jiving spots something shiny and bolts. Long shouts after her, asking what the heck she saw. The girl yells, "Don't touch it!" and points to a lizard on the dirt. Long stares at it. The beast's eyes are glowing with a weird, unnatural light. Lin interrupts, grabbing the fallen weapon. He says focus on the house might be a body inside. He preps to breach, but Jiven suggests they flank and investigate the perimeter. The protagonist shuts that down. Bad acting and drama just make you look guilty. We're going in. Long side eyes, Jin, she's acting super sus. Boom, an explosion rips through the vent the lizard crawled into. Okay, definitely not alone here. Someone is behind that wall. Long flips his stance. Maybe Jing was right. Let's bail. The merc tries to run first, but the snake tribe leader's lackey cuts her off. Lin slaps his hand on the vent lightning style. The wall crumbles, revealing a corpse covered in nasty scales. Nirv inspects the body. It's one of his tribe. The protagonist connects the dots. That lizard earlier? It was this guy. It adds up. Nirv turns on Jiving, accusing her of turning his people into reptiles. Long gets in her face, talk now or get hurt. Nirv says a prayer for his fallen kin while the tribe looks horrified. You bing? She just flashes a terrifying, satisfied smirk. Suddenly, the corpse swells up, blisters forming instantly, and pop explodes right in front of them. The squad is shook. The tribe leader threatens to end Yibing right there. Long grabs her so she can't bolt. Nirv isn't waiting, he lunges with his staff. The mercenary knees, Long in the gut to break free. She whips out a hidden piece and aims it dead at Nirv. Mexican standoff. Lin and Fang train their guns on her instantly. The protagonist tells her to chill out. She nods and tosses the pistol. The hero tells everyone to hold fire and let her speak. The merc drops the bomb. She did it all. She's a double agent and the White Tiger's envoy. The northwest border has been a meat grinder for years. Sandwolves, Snake Tribe, random clans, all fighting for scraps. Jiven adds that regular folks like them are the ones who bleed for it. She admits she thought it was over until the White Tiger showed up, saved her life, and rescued her village. She pledged loyalty that day. He ordered her to go undercover with the Sandwolves and wait for Lin to show his face. Plot twist. The White Tiger is the actual leader of the Sandwolves. He's not just after the Northwest. He's hunting the protagonist. Lin stays quiet. Jiving turns to Nirv, reminding him that the Snake Tribe burned and looted her village. She just returned the favor. Nirv admits he messed up in the past and regrets it, but Long isn't buying it. He tells Jibin her logic is trash and threatens to empty his entire clip into her. The main character tells his buddy to zip it and let the girl talk. The hired gun shoves, Long barking at him to listen to the big boss. Jin then spills the beans on where the rest of the Snake Tribe is hiding a little party favor for Lin actually listening to her spiel. She snaps her fingers and boom, bodies dangling from the ceiling. Our hero realizes she took out everyone in that back alley she was supposed to be guarding. Feng is dying to know how she turns people into stone slabs. Javen explains it's just a creepy potion gifted by Lord White Tiger. Neural calls her a monster, but Jin just laughs, saying it's a thrill watching folks squirm until they morph into animals. She adds that wiping out the clan leaders was even more of a rush. Lin kicks himself for not seeing through her disguise earlier. Even the Supreme One didn't catch a whiff of her act. He figures she teamed up with the traitor, but Jiven screams that White Tiger brought law and order to the Northwest, so nobody gets to badmouth him, especially not Lin. She flashes back to her village, getting nuked. She trekked through the wasteland, covered in cuts, until she stumbled upon the Sandwolves' turf. Some creeps tried to mess with her, but White Tiger swooped in and saved the day. Jiving admits she always felt invisible, but that day, White Tiger actually called her by name. That's why she refuses to be painted as the bad guy here. The snake leader wiped out her people and family first. Everything she's done since was just to make sure the important names didn't fade into history. Jibing gets in the MC's face, blaming him for not saving them when chaos swallowed the Northwest. She screams that he just turned a blind eye to real people. Fang notices Lin is losing it, the supreme power leaking out of him like a broken dam. His rage blows the lid off, and his lightning blasts everything in sight. The soldier keeps the traitor in his sights and asks for the green light. Jeevan dares them to pull the trigger, claiming the transformation curse is tied directly to Lord White Tiger. Now that she's exposed, running isn't an option. Just then, a flock of creepy controlled birds swarms overhead. NVA starts sweating, realizing those birds are doing Jeevan's bidding. He's terrified his staff's magic has been jammed by the White Tiger. Lin gives off a serious killer vibe, ordering the squad to prep for anything. The war against the birds kicks off. Long blasts away with his gun while Lin unleashes the thunder. But the swarm is endless, so Long decides the only fix is to take Jabing out of the equation. She argues that won't work, warning that without cutting a deal with White Tiger, they're toast. She calls him an idiot for not realizing what actually tripped the trap. Exhausted, she starts to walk off, but Long takes a shot right at her face. Feng knocks the bullet upward, insisting they can still talk this out with words. Lin isn't buying it. Monsters will keep spawning as long as the magic matrix is active. He rockets above the clouds into the bird swarm and charges up his lightning. Zap. The monsters are toast, and it's raining feathers everywhere. Long hypes up his boss's skills, but Jeevan insists it's futile, explaining this trap in snake territory was custom built just for them. The squad fights tooth and nail, but Jing claims Lin still doesn't get how messy the Northwest really is. Distracted by her monologue, the soldier shouts at Feng to keep his head in the game. Suddenly, a red-eyed bird impales. Long right through the neck, Feng screams, fearing the worst, but the soldier grabs the bird and crushes it. Then more birds dive bomb, splattering red liquid everywhere. Long takes a hit to the back, but keeps swinging. He shouts that even in the next life, he'd still sign up to be a Chinese soldier. He finally hits the dirt. Feng tries to rush over, but Nirv holds him back, warning him not to throw his life away. Meanwhile, Lin is still slicing through the birdstorm. Suddenly, his comms device buzzes. Someone on the other end reports they've finally made contact. The message is bad. Shin and the little princess have been snatched. Lin freezes for a split second, and the mercenary seizes the chance to blast him with black magic. She mentally high-fives herself, mission accomplished. Meanwhile, the report continues. Chin says Huang was murdered, the doctor is in bad shape, and the Supreme Wife's lab is rubble. All the research on the meteorite iron? Gone. Poof. She tried to secure the city to save the girls, but White Tiger's goons are crawling out of the woodwork. Chin drops to his knees, begging for forgiveness. Lin, covered in swirling black magic, tells him to just keep guarding the family. Then, his rage spikes so hard it shatters the spell. He roars, asking how the sand wolves dared to lay a finger on his kin. A massive bolt of lightning slams into Jibing, frying her into a skeleton in mere seconds. Nirv stares, jaw dropped at the supreme power, wondering why he didn't lead with that. Feng realizes from the anger that White Tiger crossed a line you don't cross. Lin finally sees the whole Northwest battle was rigged by Baihu. It was all a setup. Distract him with the sand wolves, lure him into no man's land to crush the snake tribe, leaving the door open to attack Benai. Cradling Long's body, Lin beats himself up for dragging his buddy into this mess. He asks Nirv for permission to bury him with full snake tribe honors. Fen mourns both Long and Nirv's guy who died fighting Jeevan. The smoke on the battlefield finally clears. Lin warns Nirv that the meteorite controlling the ancient snake territory is dust, meaning supernatural powers are back online in no man's land. He figures the meteorite iron is the key to the whole Northwest. White Tiger is going to use his army and turf to snag it. Even though he's barely standing, Lin swears he'll do whatever it takes to save Jeekan and Rui. The three survivors pile into the car and he floors it. Nirv asks if White Tiger works for him. Feeling the sting of betrayal, Lin replies that his pull with the Chinese military ended years ago. Once upon a time, there were 4 heavy hitters, Silong, Baihu, Shang, and Zhangwu. Now they're scattered. Only Silong really stuck by his side. He thought White Tiger was chilling in the west, but he found out months ago the guy shifted operations to the northwest border. Fenga admits he actually thought the Supreme and the White Tiger would be total besties since they're both orphans. He jokes that maybe the guy is just obsessed with his training arc. Nirv isn't finding the humor in it and swears she'll destroy the white tiger, cultivation or not. Meanwhile, Lin suspects the tiger's rebellion has Shanyan's fingerprints all over it. Cut to a stunning waterfall scene. Turns out, Feng called it. The white tiger is hyper-focused on his training, slicing through the cascading water like it's nothing. A messenger interrupts the training session with news. Jin finished the mission, but she didn't make it out alive. He asks if she should get a hero's funeral. The white tiger shatters the rock beneath him and coldly asks who that is. Shaking in his boots, the messenger stammers that she was the mole planted in the Sandwolf squad. White Tiger just tells him to go fetch the sergeants. Back in civilization out northwest, Fen is loading up the last of the gear. He's riding solo this time, just him and the Snake Tribe leader. He asks if Nirv is sure she doesn't want to tag along to the Meteorite space. The girl can't make up her mind, still too busy mourning her fallen comrade. Scene shift to Binhai City. The protagonist has zero choice. He has to go back and save his family. He gets the intel from his subordinate. Azure set up a massive ambush in the parking lot, pretending to fall for a trap just to snag the mastermind behind the betrayal. During the chaos, the little princess used her electromagnetic powers to mess with Azure's navigation, which unfortunately put her right on the White Tiger's radar. The rebels working for the White Tiger surrounded everyone. Ruin tried to blast her powers again, but the rebels used meteorites to drain her energy and snatched them up. Dr. Lee took a hit trying to protect them. Jin drops to her knees, begging for punishment, but Lin tells her to chill, it's not her fault. This was the White Tiger's master plan all along. He asks if she knows where his wife and daughter are being held. She says no, so Lin orders her to find them by the end of the day. He's worried the White Tiger in the northwest and Shenyang in the capital might team up. Qing explains that her intel shows no contact between Baiyu and Shenyang just yet. Suddenly, a roar cuts through the chat. Qing spins around to see wolves closing in, wild and ready to take a bite out of anyone nearby. The protagonist doesn't even flinch. The girl, however, is ready to throw down and protect him. This gives Lin an idea. Instead of fighting a two-front war, it's better to split them up and use Shenyang's power to check the White Tiger. The protagonist doesn't waste a second, telling Qin to go after his wife and kid. In the blink of an eye, the girl just vanishes into thin air. Now, the protagonist says he's going to put these wild dogs down for good. Cut to the royal palace. Shin gets the update that Lin is back in Binhai City. The Dragon Lord wonders what the Supreme is cooking up. The servant explains that Baiyu used the Supreme's trip northwest to crush the rebellion and kidnap his wife and daughter, so he assumes Lin is back on a rescue mission. Shin cracks up laughing, asking how on earth Baiyu managed to capture anyone from Qing's crew. But soon, his mood flips when he realizes Baiyu's little stunt might mean he's gunning for control of Binhai City. The servant drops more info that makes Shine drop his wineglass. His spy reports that the Black Armor army is totally under the White Tiger's thumb now. Suddenly, the Dragon Lord screams, demanding to know if the subordinate has any clue what Baiyu is planning to do next. The servant replies that nobody knows why he grabbed Lin's family, but it looks like he took the girls to that specific location. Shin senses that pretty soon, nobody will be able to stop these guys, especially with the White Tiger controlling the protagonist's squad. It seems like nobody is taking the Supreme seriously anymore. The servant notes that Lin only has Jing by his side now. Shin wonders if he could wipe them out with a simple wave of his hand. Meanwhile, outside the palace, the hero finds the entrance blocked. The guards realize exactly who he is after feeling a wave of dark energy wash over them. Lin ignores the guys and walks right into the castle. Shin was expecting this and says he can come on in. The protagonist makes himself comfortable in a chair while the Dragon Lord comments that it's been a while since they met face to face. Lin calls Shin the young emperor and says he probably knows why he's here. He doesn't beat around the bush, he's here to borrow troops, but he's not asking for a freebie. The protagonist promises that after the soldiers help get his family back, he'll focus on pacifying the Northwest and stabilizing the empire. Shini asks if the Supreme is in a rush. Lin replies that forces in several districts are ready to pop off, and they might not be able to wait much longer. That would be bad news, especially for Shin, since his throne would be on the line. The Dragon Lord realizes that even without his wife and daughter, the protagonist is still a force of nature. He doesn't waste time and agrees to lend the troops, but mentions the front barrier is his electromagnetic force. Lin says he gets the drift. Shin is talking about the ultimate sacrifice. He decides he'll spill the beans on the electromagnetic force when the time is right, so he grabs the royal family badge and tosses it to the protagonist. Lin says his goodbyes and heads for Shenzhen. Doesn't matter how powerful you are, you become a puppet when you're worried. On a normal day, the Supreme would never ask his enemy for a favor. A few minutes later, the hero grabs a car and gets the ping. His wife and daughter have been located. They're in the green zone used for studying exotic matter. Chink says she already scoped it out and security looks suspiciously loose, so this smells like a trap set by Bayou. Lin replies that a cheap trick like that won't stop him. He leaves her in charge of rallying the soldiers and sending them to the lab. Scene cuts to Rui inside an analysis tube. Bijou is shocked that her electromagnetic force didn't react. He assumes it's because Rui is just a kid and her powers haven't fully leveled up yet. Just then, Bayou finds out the protagonist is back in Binhai City and is coming straight for him. The guy is stunned that the Supreme made it back so fast and quickly dials up his ally. On the other end of the line, the White Tiger asks to transfer Lin as a hostage. Bayou asks if the trap is set, and the servant confirms it. Suddenly, a noise on the roof grabs their attention. They both glance up, totally confused about the commotion. Suddenly, a servant runs in, head literally smoking, screaming that the Dragon Lord's crew has the place surrounded. They just blew the front door off its hinges. Baisu still thinks he's holding all the cards since he's got the Supreme's wife and kid. Meanwhile, the Dragon Lord's squad is dismantling his defenses with surgical precision. Intel says the bad guys are holed up in Sector Amen. The breach team hits the door, and boom, problem solved in seconds. They give the boss the green light to move in after Chin confirms the secret lab is tucked away behind that wall. The hero doesn't hesitate. He storms in, blasting his traitorous ex-squad mates with lightning bolts before getting up close and personal with his fists. He calls them out for stabbing their country and brothers in the back. One of the guys he just flattened wheezes out the classic excuse, "I was just following orders." The Supreme freezes. He steps back, shoots the guy a glare, and asks if he's really stupid enough to keep fighting. The guy spills the beans. Shin and the little princess are in the lab ahead. The squad smells a trap, but the boss figures it's just another lame parlor trick. He slaps his hand on the bioscanner and the heavy doors slide open. Lin's crew stays sharp. The room is thick with fog. Suddenly, the door slams shut behind them and a shadowy figure steps out of the gloom. The hero ignores the creep and locks eyes on the machine, trapping his unconscious wife and daughter. Pure panic mode. Baihu spreads his arms like he's welcoming an old friend. The protagonist ignores the pleasantries and screams, trying to wake his girls up. Rage takes over. He hurls lightning at Baihu, but the guy dodges effortlessly, mocking the Supreme for being too slow. Lin doesn't care, he just keeps swinging. A portal rips open nearby. Bao actually looks impressed, admitting he didn't think the Supreme could sling electromagnetic force with that suppression meteor nearby. "Maybe you really are the key," he muses. The hero has no clue what this maniac is babbling about until he spots the meteorite in Baihu's hand. The villain cackles, claiming the meteorite, and soon the whole world belongs to the White Tiger. Then he yanks something from his pocket and smashes it on the floor. A thick cloud of purple smoke explodes outward, blinding everyone in an instant. Realizing it's poison gas, he orders his team to mask up. He's got a bitter taste in his mouth. Bayou used to be his right-hand man, but that bond is officially dead. He manages to grab his family and get out. By late afternoon, his wife and daughter are safe in a hospital bed. Luckily, Dr. Lee is back on his feet and taking care of Shin and Rui. He assures the hero there's nothing to worry about. They'll wake up any minute. Just then, his intel officer rushes in with an update. The Black Armor army is totally compromised, and that weasel Bayou managed to slip away. Lin asks about the rock. The scout explains it came from Snake territory, and that secret lab was running tests on how to weaponize electromagnetic force. The protagonist punches the wall so hard he leaves a crater. It's obvious now Bayu is just a puppet dancing on the White Tiger's strings. The White Tiger is getting greedy. Dragging Shin and Rui into this mess was a massive mistake. Bayu might feel tough now that he's commanding the Black Armor troops, but his little power trip won't last long. While they're strategizing on how to hunt down the White Tiger, a noise from the bed makes him jump. His wife is waking up. She throws her arms around him, relieved he's finally back. Lin holds her tight, apologizing for taking so long. They share a quiet moment. She checks herself over and seems fine, then checks him for injuries. Suddenly, their daughter comes bounding into the room. It's a tearful family reunion. The relief in the room is palpable. He tells his wife how much he missed her, but his expression darkens. He explains he has to leave again to keep them safe. He squeezes her hand and promises that once he wipes out Shenyang and Beiju, they'll get there happily ever after. His wife tells him to go do what he does best. Rui puffs out her chest, saying her dad is going to win for sure. Outside, a chopper touches down on the roof to pick him up. The mission is simple: smash the meteorite and bring peace back to the country. Before boarding, he double-checks that his girls are being moved to a safe house. His lieutenant confirms the plan. Since Rui's power is basically a villain magnet, she'll stay behind to run security personally. He tells her to meet him in the northwest once the dust settles. Then, the scene shifts to the desolate badlands of the northwest. The Sandwolf squad is partying hard after capturing a stunning woman named Nirv. She's currently surrounded by a bunch of grinning creeps. Before she can try anything, a bullet rips through her shoulder, and she blacks out. One of the thugs grabs her staff and suggests they tie her up as a gift for the boss. They're packing up when a massive sword drops from the clouds like a meteor, crushing their getaway car instantly. A guy in heavy reinforced armor steps out and grabs the hilt. The mercs open fire, but he swings the blade so hard it bursts into flames, deflecting everything. In seconds, half the squad is on the ground. The rest try to scatter and hide behind rocks, but he hunts them down one by one. The armored warrior watches a few lucky rats escape in the last truck, but he doesn't bother chasing them. Instead, he grabs a straggler by the throat and demands to know what happened to the snake tribe. Shaking like a leaf, the guy spills that the White Tiger destroyed it and raided their supplies. The warrior presses the blade closer, asking why they grabbed Nirv. The thug stammers, swearing they just found her wandering around and didn't mean anything by it. The warrior lets out a deep, frustrated huff and stomps off in a total mood. Meanwhile, over at China's central training hub, Shin steers Shin right to the heart of the complex, bragging that it's the single safest spot in the country, the exact turf where the Supreme used to whip his elite squad into shape. Shin had to ask, was Lin the one pulling the strings here? The lackey nodded, assuring her they were in good hands with Shao Ying, one of Lin's OG confidants, and a total beast with electromagnetic powers. Shin let out a breath, relieved, but admitted she still wished she could actually be. That sparked a memory in the minion's brain. He asked if she recalled that necklace her dad had gifted to Rui way back when. I never could figure that relic out, she confessed. The guy suggested taking it to Zoan, betting he could unlock its secrets. Shin's eyes lit up that was actually a solid plan. Cut to the next day in Snake Tribe territory, where an armored warrior was whipping up some lunch by boiling a literal snake in a pot. Yummy. Voices drifted over as our main character strolled with a local elder. The old man mentioned he hadn't seen his buddy since leaving the Northwest, and that the Sandwolf squad had been suspiciously quiet ever since. Then he dropped a bombshell. Just yesterday, a massive, scary-looking dude had literally crashed down from the sky. The guy had just napped in the town square with a gigantic sword, doing absolutely nothing. The villager pointed him out, and Lin walked up to Suangu, grinning about how long it had been. Suangu pulled off his helmet, explaining that he'd cut ties with Baiju ages ago. Apparently, that traitorous leader stirred up a rebellion in the Black Armor army, so now he was a wanted man. Suangu added that he'd been hunting for Lin ever since he heard the news about his awakening. Our hero asked about Saku, but was met with dead silence. The villager awkwardly offered some water before asking why Master Suangu was carrying the Snake Tribe leader's staff. The armored warrior explained he'd snatched it back when he arrived and caught soldiers trying to kidnap Nirv. Lin warned his buddy that Nirv, the staff, and the meteorite were all pieces of the same puzzle. The White Tiger probably needed all three to kickstart his master plan. Suangu agreed, noting they probably couldn't get past the Meteorite without Nirv. The scene then shifted to Sandwolf territory, where Nirv was strung up on a wooden cross, surrounded by mercenaries. Our main guy knew it was bait, but backing down wasn't his style. Suangu got the signal and dive-bombed from the sky, smashing right into the middle of the mercenary pack. The impact sent guys flying, but it also triggered their trap. Bombs started raining down on Suangu, and Lin screamed at his partner to pull back. A silhouette popped up on the Sandwolf castle walls. The guy mocked our hero, asking if he really thought he could just waltz right in. He pointed to the side, revealing the same hostages our hero had saved before, now back in danger. The retired soldier shot one of the captives and warned the Supreme not to take another step. Lin, furious, ignored the threat, so the old soldier unleashed a sand mist to hide his next move. Our hero realized they were using the sandstorm to cover up for their lack of power. He shouted that he'd handle the fighting while his partner grabbed the hostages. Suangu gripped his massive sword and charged forward. Bombs dropped from the castle, but he leaped right through the flames. The defense intensified, and the ground started shaking, prompting our hero to warn his friend not to go too crazy. Suangu steadied the stone platform holding the hostages, buying just enough time for Lin to swoop in. The plan worked, but that old soldier had one last card to play. Suddenly, the floor beneath the Supreme gave way, revealing the real trap, a massive underground crusher. The villain made his getaway in an airship while Lin got swallowed by the sand. He fought against the pull, dragging him down deeper until something in the sky caught his eye. Giant birds swooped down and snatched him right out of the crusher. Turns out, Nirv was controlling them. Enjoying the story so far? Smash that like button and drop a comment to let me know what you think of this manhwa. Yeah,